Go for it.
We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I like a full house. We got one here today. It's good. Welcome to the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. It's August 10th, 2023. On my far right, Cindy Beck, our county clerk. And on my far right is Jim Crowell, our county counsel. On my immediate left is Commissioner Aaron Mays, who represents District 3. And on my immediate right is Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. And I'm Bill Rippon, and I represent District 1. Madam Clerk, what is first?
First item is item 3, consent agenda.
Did we have a presentation going first, or
I
A little bit
don't
later.
it's
see
be later?
anything.
Okay. I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business, A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $11,532,211.65. The bulk of that voucher report is under debt service, 911 telephone, the event center, general expense, lease purchase project, Security Bank of Kansas, and this was a total of $7,203,345.27. And this is for the COP and PBC interest, principal, and agent fee payments. Under the next biggest expenditures, under payroll, $1,286,295.51. Under holding accounts with the state of Kansas, $853,806.23. Under the equipment fund, Axine Enterprise of $116,193.40. And this is for year 1 of the body worn camera and auto tagging with storage. We have TBS Electronics Incorporated for $63,695 for the Stormont-Vale Event Center, new emergency communication radios and digital repeater system. Under infrastructure, SBB Engineering LLC for $34,279.60. That is for survey, design, construction documents for 46th Street, Northwest 46th Street to Northwest Button Road to Northwest Rochester Road. Finally, under Lake Shawnee, KBS Constructors Incorporated, $112,920.51 for Lake Shawnee Campground project. Also, we have under Parks Administration, pay with ARPA SLFR funds is KBS Constructors for $256,050.05. It's also Lake Shawnee Campground equipment. I don't have any questions regarding the vouchers, would move for their approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move that we approve the correction orders.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Human Resources, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C249-2023 with Corporate Fitness Work for self-guided fitness streaming at a cost of $1 per employee per month, utilizing the insurance fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. I have George Blakely, who is joining us via Zoom, as well as Connor Clune and Alex Andrews from Willis Towers Watson. Over the last several years, the Insurance Committee and our partners at Willis have worked very hard to address the needs of our employees with programs to manage prevention or to manage diseases. We're asking for a prevention program this time, and that would be the live streaming of fitness videos. There would be 1,000 plus on-demand fitness videos, 20 to 25 live stream group exercise courses per week, and wellness education. And like the clerk stated, it would be $1 per employee per month. I'd like to let George give us a brief demonstration of how the streaming would work. George, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Pleasure to be here with you all today. Allow me to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen now?
We can.
Yes.
So this is the home screen for CFW Fit Streaming. Fit Streaming, as was mentioned, offers thousands of videos and live streams events throughout the year. Everybody would get their own home screen just like this. It is a very familiar interface, very much like a Netflix or a Hulu, where you get to pick your favorites and save them and do things along those lines. Just let me give a quick tour around the screen, if you will. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the All Categories button. And when I click on that, you'll see that we have lots of different categories to meet lots of different needs. Whether you're looking to gain strength or relax or cook a healthy meal, we've got videos to help you do that. I'm going to jump down to getting started because that's where most people are going to go when we start. So in the getting started category, we talk about the tour and how to use the app, whether it's on your phone or your smart TV. We'll show you how to use that. We have lots of tutorials about how to get up and going. And once we're embedded with your departments over there, we'll have some marketing material that's sent out to all your employees to really get the engagement going and get people excited about joining this platform. In the additional categories, we have cardio, strength, mind, body. There's pretty much something here for everybody. I'm going to just jump into a strength training one here real quick. And you can see we can pick the type of workout that we want or have time for. So if you've only got 5 or 10 minutes, this will filter those down to just those types of levels. Whether it's an intermediate or you have worked with hand weights, whatever you'd like, we have a way to do that. If you've got a favorite instructor, and as I've gone through, I've picked out a few people that I like to work with. Jamie is somebody that I enjoy her workout, so I'm just going to pull up one of these things with Jamie real quick. And as you can see, it's a very much click and play type of interface. You click on it, and it brings up the video. Each video is going to give you a little idea about what is in that video just from the icons that are on the screen. I'm going to let Jamie talk for a couple of seconds.
It's going to be quick and effective. All you're going to need is a set or two of weights and dumbbells. If you don't have it available, you can always grab household items like wire guns. You can be creative. We will be staying in an upright position the entire time to make sure that your spine is clear so nothing trips up and that you stay safe. If you're new to the exercise, you're getting back into the swing of things, please listen to your body. We encourage you to consult your physician. Take breaks when you need to, drink water, and then put me on pause. Otherwise, I will be right here with you, providing modifications for intensity as we go. Most importantly, keep your body and have fun. We're at the just a quick warm up here. We're just going to jog.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we are not a company that hires professional, good-looking models to do our videos. All our content is created in-house with real people doing real exercises and real cooking and real yoga. It's not something that's highly polished with happy, shiny people. These are real people doing real things, and all the content is created by Corporate Fitness Works. All our instructors are certified instructors. Many of them have advanced IDs, degrees in physiology, and we really bring the best to the screen. So we do have a strenuous vetting that goes forward. Anything that we actually put up onto here has gone through a lot of different programs to make sure everybody is getting the best out there. One of the other things that I really like about it is that I can create a playlist in my library. The playlist allows me to grab things that I would like to use often and come back to it. So I work in a desk all day, so I do a little chair yoga. Helps me stretch out in mid-afternoon. And so that's on my playlist. and I like to eat, and I like baked beans. So I've actually tried this menu. It's done, it's the way they do the menus is they talk about the ingredients and what ingredients work with what and all those types of things, and it's an actual nutritionist that's put this stuff together for you. In addition to the playlist, you can also take a look at your history, go back and view things that you want to view over again. And the nice thing about this is that we also have live events. Where the live events really come into play is we find that the people that join the live events are looking not only for the exercise, but for the connections that you make with the instructors, because it's not just a one out, it's a bi-directional thing. And you can have somebody that's sitting in the CEO office and somebody that's in the delivery office all taking the same class at the same time. So as was mentioned earlier, we have multiple live stream events that happen throughout the day, and so you'll find one that can fit into your schedule. Any questions so far?
The one other thing that I'd like to mention is that no fees would be passed to the employees. The fees would come from the insurance fund.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some questions about that, Angela.
Sure.
How many employees do we have in Shawnee County?
About 900 full-time employees.
So we have 900 full-time employees. We're going to get billed $1 per month by Willis, meaning we're going to get billed $900 per month for these videos. That's almost $11,000 a year for these videos. Is that really a good expenditure of our county dollars?
I think it is a good expenditure of our county dollars. We're doing everything on the back end to work with people on disease. We need to do preventative things to keep them from getting it, and exercise is one way to do that. Now, if participation isn't good with this program after 1 year, because it is a one-year contract, it would have to go away. We don't want to pay if people aren't going to use it, and we know that we will have to keep them engaged if we were to move forward.
I don't know that this is the best. I agree with you that we need to do things to address health and fitness, myself included. But that was, didn't he chuckles? That was rhetorical. But I just don't know that having these videos is going to get the result that we're wanting. And I question whether or not we could do other things that would be better motivators to help people have a healthier lifestyle.
Now, this is being offered by Willis Towers Watson. Is there any sort of an insurance premium break that comes as a result of this, or is this purely
We're not
maybe
talking
someday we'll have a healthier workforce and claims will go down?
So Willis that we're working with is our contractor Willis, not our insurance provider, Willis Towers Watson.
Okay.
So it's different. They are our contractor, and they help us with all of our benefits. So they're not offering it. Corporate Fitness Works is, and we would go straight through them.
Okay, is there, I mean, I don't mind providing the benefit. I think the problem that I'm having is the same as Commissioner Cook, and I don't want to speak for you, but I assume that it's paying for every single employee, knowing that not every single employee is going to use this program. Is there a way that we can pay on a per employee basis, so everybody who sets up a username and password, we'll pay for them, but not everyone?
George, would you like to speak to that? Because I know that you do have some minimums.
So we do have different types of licensing, but the most cost-benefit one is to provide it for everybody. Now, we obviously know that not all 900 employees are going to utilize the equitable benefit that you're looking to offer to your employees. And our statistics show that at first it's going to be somewhere around 25 to 40%, but that number climbs because we continue with outreach for these type of things through the marketing of our marketing department in conjunction with your internal staff to help grow that engagement. What we found with other municipalities is that it does take a little bit of a ramp up to get people understanding what's going on, but what we also have found as the contracts go from year to year to year, the engagement keeps getting higher and higher and higher. What we have found is most people, have all great intentions, especially around the beginning of the year when we make those resolutions. This year I'm going to do it, kind of thing. So, but we've found that the people that actually are going to go to the gym will continue to do that if they also have other types of venues to do it. So being able to work out wherever you are, whether it's your home or in the office, without having to make that trek to the physical gym, gives everybody an option to work on their fitness and wellness. And over the past several years, especially with the pandemic, the home workout has really gained in popularity amongst a large swath of the working population, especially as we move into hybrid roles where people aren't always coming into the office where there might be a physical gym located. But by giving them this option to have it at their leisure, at their venue, people tend to use it more often.
So what discounts can we have off of our $1 million increase Willis taxed to us last year by participating in this?
This is a different Willis. It's not the same
Okay.
group.
It's the same company, but it's like,
I mean, do we have any premium discounts by participating for our health insurance?
We could look into that area of it, look at any kind of premium discounts that may be given.
And this is Alex with Willis. I just wanted to jump in real quick to make one clarifying point. Corporate Fitness Works is an outside vendor of ours that we work with. So this is not something that we, Willis Towers Watson, are billing you for. It would be a completely separate relationship. I just wanted to clear that up.
And Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services. Just, you mentioned about premium discounts. We are self-insured for our health insurance, so we do not pay premiums to an insurance company. Blue Cross Blue Shield is our administrator, so they administer our claims, but we are self-insured. So anything we can do to lower our claims is what helps us. And that's why we think this would be a pilot for a year would be worth it to see if we can avoid one emergency room visit, or if we can, help one person diabetes not progress, then that would be a savings to our claims. And that's, anyway, just wanted to explain we're not paying premiums, we are self-insured on our health insurance.
One more thing that I might add is that the next presentation that you'll have from us is for Willis, and it's about a weight loss management program that we are looking to bring, and this would feed right into it. That would be part of helping people continue on that journey to lose weight.
I understand the premise, and I appreciate that, we all have rooms for improvement. And again, try not to feel too self-conscious here with these two items back to back. Maybe a message, maybe directing a message.
No.
But I'm just not, I don't know that I'm convinced that Shawnee County being billed at $900 a month, that this is the thing, the catalyst for us. And I agree that there are things that we could do, there are things that we need to do. Having better health food options for our employees, where a lot of times when we're working in a downtown corridor, our options for food are very limited. and I look at our employees at the courthouse at 707 Quincy, and how can we have healthy eating options, healthy food options, in maybe looking if we're going to spend $11,000 a year, is that something that we can do to help get more healthy food options here? Same for North Annex. The employees that are up at the North Annex, your food options are even more limited there.
The truck stop is basically the
Yeah,
only thing out there.
outside of, I mean, now, the Shawnee County Department of Corrections, they have their own kitchen and cafeteria, so they have a little bit more options there. But again, for the bulk of our employees, we're very limited in what we have and time. And so it's often a quick grab and go and not a very healthy food options at that. So that's just, I'm skeptical at whether or not this is the option that we need to pursue.
Well, one of the things I might add, piggybacking on the comment that if there's one less claim for a diabetes or a heart incident, it's less expensive to do this than to pay that claim. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So for less than a cup of coffee, for 1 cup of coffee for your employee for a whole month, they have the option to help. Not only does it help in the fitness area, but it also helps in the mental area as well. Studies have shown that when people work out, it lowers their level of stress. It ups their productivity. It allows for less absenteeism. So there's lots of ancillary benefits that are not just directly related to weight loss that helps with healthy employees. A healthy employee is a happy employee, and we found that time and time again. So there's lots of ancillary benefits that happen besides just a smaller pant size.
I would say if it's something that you're not ready to move forward with today, we could table it. Our benefits, this contract would not start until January, and it would give me more time to talk to you individually or in a work session about the program.
I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B2, consider authorization and execution of contract C250-2023, third amendment to the TRIA Health contract, adding a Choose to Lose Weight Management Program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources again. I have Jim Wynn with me today to discuss the weight management program through TRIA.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today I wanted to talk to you about the Choose to Lose Weight Loss program. This is a bolt-on to the program that we currently have in place with the county, where we are working with your members that have chronic conditions, who take multiple medications and so forth. And what we are proposing here is our Choose to Lose Weight Loss Management Program, where our pharmacists and our health coaches can continue to work with your members around the issue of weight loss, obesity, and so forth, because that is a big issue, as you all are aware of. But more importantly, we're seeing more and more the commercials that are out there about the GLP-1s, the weight loss. We know they're effective, but you do have to have a program in place to help these individuals to better manage that journey that they're going to go on. As you can see here, the stats are they really haven't changed a whole lot. Obesity is a problem. 42% of Americans are. It's the cost associated with it. You know, the more obese we are, the more conditions that we have that lead to chronic conditions, unfortunately, not only cost the individual more money, but it also costs the plan sponsors that as well. But what we do know is that if we have a multifaceted program available to individuals that can help them to guide them on the journey, provide them with the clinical as well as the professional resources to help them to get there, what we do know is that we can have a positive impact on weight loss. We can have a positive impact on the health and well-being of these individuals, and then also have an impact on the health and well-being of the financial expenditures that are being had for these individuals. So what our program does, as I mentioned, it's a combination of utilizing clinical pharmacists, where Medications may benefit individuals, as well as having their own health coach, nutritionist, and dietitian to help them to guide them through. The key to a good program is being able to talk with individuals, engage them, giving them the resources, talk to them about their diet, their exercise, what are their behaviors and lifestyles. As I mentioned earlier, the medications that are out there, Shawnee County does offer weight loss medications to your members, but with that, there needs to be clinical oversight for those, because the majority of the people, especially in our program where it's BMI focused, where we focus in on individuals that have BMIs of 27 and above with chronic conditions and or BMIs of 30 and above, chronic or non-chronic. If, after talking with the individuals, if a medication we believe from a clinical standpoint and from a willingness on the patient standpoint that they wanted to take, we want them to be fully aware of what the pros and the cons are. The other thing is with these weight loss medications, again, they can be very effective. However, they have a lot of side effects associated with them. And those are the side effects that we sit down with our patients with and talk to them about what those are, what they potentially could be experiencing. But also, even more critically, we have to do a full medication review, because there's a lot of weight loss medications that cannot be taken with cardiovascular medications or hypertension medications. So we have to align with the conditions that these individuals have, with the medications that they're currently taking, and then be able to align that medication with them. I will tell you what's kind of interesting, although we've seen all the commercials about the Ozempics, about the Mounjaros and the Wegovy's and everything of that nature, they are effective. However, what we do know is for these medications, for especially the Ozempics, the Mounjaros that are FDA approved only for diabetes diagnoses, what we are seeing on the weight loss is that it is significant. However, there is a good percentage of that weight loss is muscle weight loss, not necessarily all attributed to fat. So educating people, that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, what we do need to be doing is educating them on how we supplement that. So exercise, additional protein, and so forth. But that's where our clinical pharmacists will come in to guide them with all of this, and then our health and nutrition coaches will meet with them on a weekly basis to help them to complete the journey that they're on. We also have an app that tracks everything that they do here. We make it easy on the member. We promote the program. For those that are already engaged into our advocacy program, we've already identified those individuals that we believe would benefit from the program, and their pharmacist during their next consultation, if approved, would talk to them about this program being available and set up a consultation to really determine their desire and willingness to participate into the program. As I mentioned, we do a very good job of communicating what this is. We are population-based on BMIs, again, 27 and above with chronic conditions or BMIs of 30 and above. Our recommendation for these individuals is because we want to get them on the journey and get them to where they are changing their behaviors over time. We recommend that at a maximum, they're on it for 12 months to see where they're going. Our average patient is in the program for just right around 6 months, because what we're able to do is get them to where they need to be, meeting goals, but they also have access to be able to come back and talk to their coaches at any time. So I think what we do from a clinical as well as from a health coaching side, the first thing we do is we have our initial consultation, and we talk to them about the program. We talk to them, as I mentioned, about their diet history, physical activity. We talk about SMART goals and so forth. If we get individuals who are not truly committed to participating in the program, tracking, doing the things that they need to be doing, having skin in the game, we will not engage them into the program and charge Shawnee County for that. We'll talk to them about other resources that are available, encourage them that they do have this resource available, but it does take a commitment from them to do that. There are weekly ongoing consultations between those that are engaged and their health coaches, and our pharmacists get involved at any time there's a medication-related issue and/or question. So the app, it's a really easy-to-use app, easy to download, but it tracks your calories like most health apps that are out there, exercise, meal, and so forth. So it's very thorough, but it also captures that onto their portal so they have access to it at any time, and they can show that information to their physicians as well if they go in to see a specialist or a primary care. We do have very good data on success of impactables as far as weight loss are concerned. 7 in 10 will lose weight in the program. 35% lose anywhere from 1 to 4% of their body weight. 34% lost 5 or more, and 14% lose 10 or more. The other great thing about the program is that, again, in a lot of cases, members are on a lot of medications, but if we can get them on the right path, there are some medications that through diet and exercise and so forth, we might be able to get you off those medications. Hypertension medications, cholesterol, for example, and other types of medications. And then the success stories, and you have hard copies of this. This program works. It does get people, help them to better understand what their goals are, and more importantly, not only understanding it, but how do they get there, and having that support mechanism to do that. When a member does come in, they get what we call a welcome kit, and probably they get a portion plate and a gift card, but they also get this Bluetooth scale. And this Bluetooth scale, what this does is every time while they're in the program, they do their readings, their health coach, because it's going directly to the portal, their health coach is seeing the progress that these individuals are making. So that helps us on these weekly calls to see if they're on a medication, and we see that maybe their weight in the last 30 days hasn't changed, or maybe they've increased. We know we have an issue around individuals and whether or not they're being compliant with the medication or just solely relying on that medication to work. That's not going to get them to where they need to be. So that allows us to have that more in-depth conversation around that to determine whether or not it is even necessary or warranted for these individuals to keep on a medication that isn't going to work for them. The initial consultation is a one-time $325, and then it's $35 a month per participant. Average person is in the program for 6 months. So that was the last slide that I had there. Any questions for me on this program?
Any questions?
Sure. Rick on. So let me just walk through this. $325. I get a scale. I get an online app. I've got a person I'm going to be talking to. But my primary care physician, isn't that the person that would be deciding what my medications are, what would be best for me? So shouldn't this be in conjunction with your primary care physician?
So Kevin, what we would do, Commissioner, what we would do is, you're exactly right. We do not prescribe medications. So what we would do is through the consultation with the individual, through our pharmacist, we would, if it made clinical sense for them to be on the medication, in partnership with the patient, with the member, we would do the outreach to the physician to alert them to this program, have it available to them, and talk to them about the weight loss medication. Yes.
Okay. And then, as part of the service, there's going to be somebody weekly calling to see why I'm still not having healthy lifestyles.
There's going to be a weekly interaction, so it could be texting back and forth. It could be a scheduled phone call. It really is what the member wants to do. Again, we're not chiding. We're encouraging these individuals if they have any concerns, any questions. What we want them to know is they have access to us at all times. We're going to meet. We're going to talk with them at least once a week, but in between, if they have a question, they can text or they can call their health coach.
But this program is completely voluntary
Completely
on the employee's
voluntary.
part, and there's no minimum requirement.
There's no minimum requirement. It's all based off of per participant, voluntary. Yes.
Yes.
as part of the welcome kit, they get a gift card. What's that for?
The gift card is for the app. The app, it costs $50, so we offset that cost for that.
For the Lose It app?
Yes, there's a cost, so there's the gift card pays for the app.
So, I went to Lose It's website, it's $30 a year, and a lifetime membership is $150. Do they get a lifetime membership, or if they stop talking
Yes.
to you, does it get shut off?
Once that app is their app, you are correct.
Okay. But I guess so we pay the $325 and then they get a gift card to go buy it themselves?
Then, because when you go onto the app, they do have the charges you're seeing there. So
Okay.
what we're doing is just offsetting that. So that's not a barrier to these individuals to downloading the app. The app is critical so that we can track, so they can track and we can track how they're doing.
Okay. And they do have a free version of this app as well?
They do have a free version. If they'd like to use it, they do. It's not nearly as comprehensive, but they do have access to that as well, yes. And we talked to them about that.
The weekly check-ins,
Yes.
do you guys use AI at all for that, or is this a real person?
This
you're
is a
talking
real
to?
person, yes. And as a side note to that, Commissioner, our organization, even through the pharmacy advocacy program, we have the help desk. Well, we answer the phone live.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I still have a lot. But I think I probably want to table this, and I think this is, both of these items, I think we need to have a work session to talk about them more, in my opinion. So
Thank you.
I would make a motion that we table.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item C, Department of Corrections, number 1, consider approval to purchase a 2020 Durango SUV from the Kansas Highway Patrol Fleet Sales Program at a cost of $29,350, utilizing approved 2023 capital outlay funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. This is just a request for us to continue using a very successful program that we already are using, to request a purchase of a 2020 Durango SUV from the Kansas Highway Patrol Fleet Sales. The vehicle is approximately $29,350, and it does come with the rear seat, the Pro Guard that allows us for the safety and security of the officer. That these items were approved for us in the capital outlay of 2023 to buy. We found that these vehicles have been very durable. We're transporting more, that they're coming in extremely good quality, very good price, and it is helping us stay under that, a lot of the budget that we had approved, and we're even reaching out to other agencies in the county and showing them the benefits and allowing them to come over and look at the vehicles. This just allows us to update our vehicles that we use to get rid of the vehicles that are rusted, damaged, or have tremendous amount of miles on them. But again, this has been very successful. We've already bought 2, and this has just been very successful, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
No, I think this is a good program. I'm happy that the state of Kansas offers this to us, so I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item C2, consider approval to reject the single bid for the HVAC system replacement project at the Corrections Annex. Due to only one company submitting a bid and the significant costs submitted, the agency would like to review the project.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I'm asking approval to reject the single bid that we received towards the cost and basically the construction and repairs to the existing HVAC system that we have at the annex. That at the very beginning, and this was a year or so ago, when this stuff was approved, that for us to look at, they gave us a bid of about $850,000. The single agency that bid on this came in almost 4 times that amount. We do need to look at a different option. and I've met with, Major Eve Kendall's here today. I do think that we do have to look at something, but I would like to be able to use, there was money set aside for this through the ARPA funds of $850,000. I think we need to look at another option or to see how we can use this money towards fixing or updating it a little bit. I just don't think it's responsible going through one bid that's almost 4 times the amount of that budget. But we do need to work with Nelda and everybody to go over and do a better, maybe look at an alternate. So with that, I stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I'll move to reject the bid and go out.
I will second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item, thank you.
Item D, Health Department, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contracts T251-2023, renewal of the Regional Public Health Emergency Preparedness Contract with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for grant funding in the amount of $37,730 to be received by the Northeast Quarter Regionalization Initiative for the state fiscal year 24 period of July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024.
Good morning, Commissioners. Craig Barnes, Health Department. The item before you is our annual renewal of our regional FEP, Public Health Emergency Preparedness Grant through KDHE. No real changes this year, still working with the same partners through our Northeast Corner Regionalization Initiative. A lot of the outreach that we do is to provide opportunities and materials to support local preparedness efforts and community resiliency efforts within those communities within this jurisdiction. Some of the things that we have been adding to our repertoire through our staff to be able to offer to our community partners in these counties is mental health and first aid training, CPR certifications to help them offset some of the costs that they may be incurring within their local communities to provide those preparedness activities there in those counties. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have today.
Questions?
No? I'll move to approve.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item.
Item
Great.
D2, request approval for the Shawnee County Health Department to apply for the Workforce Development Grant through KDHE for years 2023 to 2027 in the total amount of $276,470.48.
Good morning, Commissioners. Teresa Fisher, Director of the Health Department. This is a one-time grant being offered through KDHE. It actually originated through the CDC. It is a non-competitive grant, and so it was based on a variety of factors that are listed in the memo. The intent of this is to really look at building up public health workforce, looking at infrastructure, different organizational capacity. So at this time, we are not at all 100% decided on what we'd like to use this money for, but we know that we've got some great ideas exploring with regional partners in the state about what opportunities we have to use this to the best of our ability for our staff. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Does not require a match.
No match is required.
All right. I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you,
Teresa.
Commissioner.
All right, next item.
Item E, Planning Department, number 1, public hearing and consider approval of resolution number 2023-51, major amendment number 12 to amend Theracon subdivision number 2 master PUD planned unit development plan to update and add additional building square footage for various projects spanning over the next several years, modify the entrance at Northeast 39th Street to improve truck and traffic safety, and add a solar field all on the property located at 1035 Northeast 43rd Street in Soldier Township.
Morning, Commissioners. Joni Fedani, Director of the Planning Department. As mentioned, we have a public hearing today for a major amendment to the Hills Pet Nutrition Theracon subdivision PUD. This is major amendment number 12. What we're going to be doing here is requesting to update the building square footage. This is a plan that will help improve the usage of the property over the next 5 to 10 years. So instead of every time they want to make a change to their PUD coming in for another amendment, They're doing a bunch all at one time. One of the primary goals that they want to do is improve the truck traffic along Northeast 39th Street. They also have a private usage solar field that they would like to add, actually 2 different solar fields in 2 different locations on the property, as well as adding amenities such as covered parking and walkways for their employees. They will likely have solar panels located on those covered parking and walkway areas. And then they have some additional buildings that they will be changing. This is going to be a continuing use of the property. They're not changing what they're doing at the property. It's just adding actual building square footage. History of Hill's Pet Nutrition at this location. The property has historically been used as a research facility and will continue to do that use. They have offices, lab space, warehouse, research facilities where they house animals. This was first authorized, or the property was first authorized under a special use permit in 1959. The PUD was actually put into place and rezoned as a PUD in 1989 and has operated as such since. The low-density residential use that goes around the property actually has built up around since this inception. The last major amendment that the commission would have seen was in 2019 when they added their small paws facility. They have about 170 acres at the property. The list here in white should be also attached as part of your packet. This is the list of items that they intend to do over the next 5 to 10 years. They are going to demolish some existing buildings and then add new ones. There's some warehouses, packaging lab, the pedestrian hallways, an environmental chamber, a new guard station on the south side, and some other small miscellaneous structures as needed. And then they also talk about, at the bottom here, the canopies and the covered spaces for not only their solar panels, but also covered parking and walkways. This is a site plan of the property, and what you'll see is the items that are marked red are going to be the additions, the changes. And so some of it will be removal of property and or buildings and then adding new ones. Others are just new buildings or walkways themselves. On the south side of the property, you can see a long strip in red. That's how they're going to modify the parking. This was originally supposed to be a pull-in and have a U-turn area for the trucks. And the applicants hosted a neighborhood meeting in June, and they had received some complaints from some of the neighbors and concerns about the trucks parking there or lights shining into houses that are on the south side of the property. And taking that into consideration, the applicant modified what they are intending to do here and made those changes which are reflected here. And here's a closer up shot of the parking, or the truck entrance on the south side. This is the property as a whole. As you can see, the property is very large. The west side has a lot of trees, and then there's also a berm that goes around a chunk of the property. And I'm going to try and highlight here. So you'll see this spot right in here where the cursor is. That's where one solar field would be located, completely engulfed in trees surrounding it so that it will be blocked from view from nearly anybody. The other solar would go up in this area, up in here, in the center. And then if you look around all along the outskirts along here, this is actually a berm that goes around the property to help hide some of the buildings. One of the neighbors did indicate at the Planning Commission meeting that they were still able to see the Small Paws facility from their home, even with the berm. But in this scenario, the property is zoned as such that the facility that is there is an allowable use. This is the notification area. We sent out 112 letters to everybody within 1,000 feet of the property. I only received one phone call before the Planning Commission meeting from a neighbor who just had general ire about the property. It wasn't in particular to the items that were being considered at this time. As mentioned, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting in June where they answered questions and made some adjustments to their plans that were then considered by the Planning Commission. None of those changes have been made since the Planning Commission meeting. We did have 5 neighbors appear at the Planning Commission and speak. Although they all did get up and speak at the time where you could be against the plan, no one actually indicated any issues with the plan in particular. Everything that they had a complaint against had been modified after the neighborhood meeting, and most of that revolved around the truck parking. Staff concerns. I have little to no concern about this amendment. There were a few things that needed to be changed on the site plan with the removal of a reference of a right-of-way and some fencing that falls within a right-of-way along Northeast 39th Street. At this time, the fencing doesn't have to be moved, but would need to be moved if 39th is ever expanded. I would like to point out that the solar fields are for company use only. So there's a very large difference between some of the solar fields that you've had in front of you where we had a conditional use permit for a public utility. These fields will be used solely by the company, and they can speak to that a little bit more themselves. I did indicate within the conditions that I believe that they should maintain buffer zones of the berm, the trees, to help any impact on the neighbors. I also think that they need to take action to make sure that they protect from soil erosion. They may use some gravel ground underneath, or if they would like to plant native grasses and flowers, as we've seen before, that would be suitable as well. They do have a lagoon that services the property, and we did send this plan over to KDHE and had not heard back from them. But ultimately, anytime they come in for a building permit for any of these changes in the future, we resubmit that to KDHE, and they at that time can submit plans or recommendations if necessary. I did find that this proposal complies with the golden factor. The use of the property is suitable and has been existent since 1959. The residences have grown around the business and will likely to continue to do so. This amendment continues to comply with the zoning of the property and has the property has appropriate public services with water, lagoon service, and electrical and gas, etc. The amendment is consistent with the Shawnee County Comprehensive Plan. Planning Commission held their meeting on Monday, July 10. As I mentioned about the neighbors that spoke and the concerns that were addressed at the neighborhood meeting. There were some questions from the planning commissioners in regards to the solar fields, and they also had some questions about what a PUD actually does and how it's different from putting conditions on with a conditional use permit. And what I had explained to them is that a PUD is a zoning district that allows flexibility for the operation of that particular business. It promotes the use of the land and integrates multiple uses in one development. For instance, this property itself has underlying zoning of RR1 and O&I1. It utilizes a master plan that they have to follow, which is a site plan that dictates rules, how they can amend things, what they're allowed to use that property for. And so what you're considering today is that amendment of that master plan. All of their streets within that master plan are private. They maintain those in any of the common areas and recreational areas. I do recommend approval of the request, as did the Planning Commission. They voted 5-0 to recommend approval. I added the following conditions: that it comply with any requirements set forth by KDHE or the local environmental health department for upkeep of the facility lagoon, that they would need to move the fencing out of that Northeast 39th Street right-of-way, that they should remove reference to the proposed 45-foot right-of-way along Northeast 39th Street, which they've actually already done. They need to maintain a buffer of trees, native grasses, vegetation, etc., around the solar fields to help protect the impact of the neighbors and the soil erosion, as well as obtain all necessary state and local permits as part of any development that may occur on the property. And other than that, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
If there's, oh, go ahead.
I'll move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. So at this time, if there's anybody who'd like to speak concerning this project.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dr. Nick Rosie, Vice President of Product Development for Hill's Pet Nutrition. And I do have just a couple prepared comments to make first before we go, and then John Ladson will present our actual proposal. As we know, the Pet Nutrition Center has been a member of the Topeka community for over 50 years. 30 of those years have actually been owned by the Colgate Company as Hill's Pet Nutrition. So we've been here a very long time, and we'd like to continue that. Our goal here is really about expansion of our infrastructure within our facilities. We want to add warehousing space. We're in the process currently of actually adding fire suppression. As we do that, we're going to lose some square footage on storage, and so we need to be able to increase our warehousing square footage to be able to compensate for that. We also want to be able to update, as we said, 39th Street, our entrance there. We have modified that after discussions with our neighbors. The reality is we really wanted just to improve the safety and the flowability of the traffic. We weren't married to any one particular design and was more than happy to take the neighbors' input to actually find an amicable solution between both of us. Finally, we are looking to add solar panels. We're logical. The reality, we know we do have the two facilities or fields proposed. We do want to put it on the top of the covered parking too. The goal there is twofold. One, we want to be able to be more of a sustainable organization. But the second is that we're actually looking to also protect our employees' cars too. We had a massive hailstorm within the last 9 years that caused a significant portion of damage to their cars and vehicles out there. And the goal here is to be able, by adding the covered parking to that and then using the solar panels, we'll get a 2-for-1. We'll be able to generate electricity and provide an improved working environment for our employees. So if the commissioners have any questions for me specifically, otherwise I'll turn it over to John.
I don't have any, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm John Ladson, TGB Group, consulting engineer on behalf of Hills. Today we have, Nick just spoke, he's with Hills. We have members of the facilities team, and also the contractor is also here in case there's any construction questions for her. I just thought I'd run through real quick kind of the items that we're going to add and do, the major items on the PUD. The first one, I'm just going to go through the next slide here. There's an existing, that's the existing facility as it sits today. There is the highlighted areas in red as Joni showed. And then here's a view of from the northeast, looking down through the site from the aerial view. As you can see on the northeast side and all along the east side, there's a large 25-foot berm at some points all along there to help hide the area in there and to help on noise and that sort of stuff. So here's the next one. I'm going to speak to this one. This is looking from the southwest and looking to the northeast. And it kind of shows the areas that we're going to add there. So I'm going to go through and show you, see if this shows, yeah, this point. Can you see my pointer there at all? Okay. So the first ones are the B3 and B4. So there's existing buildings right there now on the north side. They're old, they're dilapidated, they need to be updated, and so they're going to remove those buildings and put new buildings in the same place. They're going to add just a little bit of square footage in the same general facility there. They will have updated facilities that meet their standards today. With all these buildings that they're going to put up, they like to go to what they call LEED Gold or LEED Silver. Their whole campus is going to try to go to net zero at some point. That's energy to reduce energy costs. So that's one building, or two buildings, I guess, on the north side. The next one is to expand C2 and C10 warehouses. There's a building that is directly to south of the B3, B4 that we're building. They need additional warehouse space, and so they want to expand those to the south. That's those two buildings. Is that pointing good or not? Does this one work better? There. Okay, so there's the B3, B2, or B3 and B4 buildings. The one to the south, right there, is the C2 and C10 buildings. Those are going to be warehouse buildings. Those are, they got a lot of additional space they need, and to racking systems and that sort of stuff that they need for their materials. The third thing is C9. That is right here. That would be a placeholder to expand lab space. There's the building right here is all their lab. They continually have updated equipment that they need to have, and to better serve their customer, they need in the future some additional lab space, so that's what that would be for. The next building is the one over here on the very south end. Let's see if I get that to work. That's the environmental chamber. What that is it's a controlled environment where they store materials, and they can control temperatures. Say a truck's going down the road and it stalls, whatever, and the materials are in there in transit, and they get to 120 degrees. They do different tests on the food to make sure that it's still edible for the dogs and cats. So. The last thing is on the south end is the security build. There's a security building. Let's see. Let's go back this way. So down on the end, like we talked about, there's going to be a security building on the south end and modified entrance. They'd widen the entrance, have another little lane there for trucks to stage if they're there in the morning or something before the gate opens. They'd be able to park there and wait. They don't usually have that many coming in there. One of the other things is the covered walk paths. They want to add some covered walk paths between the buildings. A lot of the employees have to go throughout the day, go in between, and when there's hail, there's rain, and that sort of stuff, that'll give the employees benefit. The other things are the solar panels. With the existing, it's not really showing up there. With the new project that is going on right now, here's the area of solar panels that they like to put there. That's about a 1 acre place with solar panels. And then the other solar panels is off to the west in their other site. There's an opening way up here, as you can see. Up right there. That's open right now surrounded by trees. They'd like to use about 3 acres there to put additional solar panels in the future if corporate allows them to do that. They're trying to get to net zero energy, and that would be one way to help facilitate their things. So. The only other thing is we're going to add some parking along, throughout there. We're going to lose some parking when we expand C2 and C10. So there'll be some additional parking that we need to do, and then we'll have some of the covered parking for amenities for the employees and their cars. They had a big hailstorm back a couple of years ago, and had quite a few cars get blown away there. So, and then on top of those covered parking, they would like to possibly, if approved, put solar panels on that too. So, like I said, those are the major items. I'm open for questions. I know, like you said, we held the neighborhood meeting, had pretty favorable replies from all the neighbors. They had some things like the 39th Street entrance. We took that into consideration, modified that entrance, and they were at the Planning Commission, and they were very, very pleased with what we've done. So. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak about this project?
Proponents or opponents?
Opponents or opponents? All right, seeing none, I will move for approval and to close the hearing.
I'll second the motion to close the public hearing and approve the proposal.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
As per our resolution, we're going to stand for a few seconds. I think we've gone an hour.
Thank you, guys.
Do you want to continue?
Thanks.
Yep.
Commissioner Rip?
What's that?
Commissioner, do you want to continue?
Yeah, we can continue. I don't see why we shouldn't. Next item.
Item E2, consider approval of a request to reclassify the planning and zoning administrator position to a zoning and floodplain manager at an annual salary including benefits of no less than $80,754.13.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joni Thadani, Director of the Planning Department. As mentioned by the clerk, I'm here to reclassify my planning and zoning administrator position to a new title of zoning and floodplain manager. If you shall recall, Anna Ortega worked for Shawnee County for many years, and she held the position of the planning and zoning administrator. Upon her departure in December, when she retired, we have been doing some reassessment of the office. We've reorganized. I've changed how the positions operate. I've reclassified one other position, and then I added a new position and eliminated one. And based on all of that, the job duties of the planning and zoning administrator have changed exponentially. A large chunk of the duties that position had were removed and given to other people. And so over the last few months, what I've been doing is kind of sitting things out a little bit. I took a pause to see how it operated, how we maneuvered with the changes, and how that would affect any new employee that would be coming in and taking over this role. And what we were able to determine, or what I was able to determine, is that we have a really good process going right now with the modification of moving those job duties elsewhere. And so I sat down and looked at the position to determine what it is that needed to be done with this instead. And the two main priorities are for zoning and floodplain. And so I modified the job duties to encompass just as a majority those two items, along with some other support items. It really, honestly, the planning and zoning administrator job probably had too much associated with it. And what was happening is that person was handling that work, but other people were having to do a lot of support work or also doing the jobs as well. And so by removing those duties from the planning and zoning administrator and creating this position, I believe that it's a much cleaner position. It hopefully shall be easier to hire. We really are looking for someone with some background in GIS, floodplain, some planning experience, but frankly, we would also consider people who have economic development or just other general governmental relations type experience. And it will stay at the same salary, but we're going to move it from an exempt position to a non-exempt. The PZA job had been salaried, and I didn't feel like that was necessary for this position, and so we are modifying that. But it would start at the step 1 of range 18, which is the equivalent at $28.43 an hour. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Yeah, you go ahead and sit down. If I have no question, I would move for approval.
Second?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Joni.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item.
Item F, Parks and Recreation, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-252-2023 a Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas Pathways to a Healthy Kansas Implementation Grant Conditions Agreement. The awarded grant amount of $75,000 will be used to fund the Greenways and Trails Master Plan. Approval will also be designated, will allow for designated staff to utilize DocuSign grant documents and reporting. Further, this approval allows the department to proceed with soliciting bids from vendors.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. On May 11th of 2023, the Commission allowed us to enter into an MOU with Heartland Healthy Neighborhood, the City of Topeka and Shawnee County, to update this Trails and Greenways Master Plan. One bit of housekeeping here that I think is important that I want to point out is in that MOU, it does spell out that we will have a $50,000 contribution. That is not listed in the memo, so I want to make sure you understand that up front. Apologize for that oversight. So the grant is for $75,000. Our portion would be up to $50,000 depending on what comes back when we do the RFQ. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So the total amount would be $125,000 towards this master plan.
Our total amount would be $50,000 is what we would pay, and the amount could be more depending on the RFQ. The other partners in this, Heartland Healthy Neighborhoods, City of Topeka, would also be contributing if needed. We need to go out for an RFQ and find out the actual price.
Okay. So you're receiving money from City of Topeka, Heartland Healthy Neighborhoods, Blue Cross Blue Shields, and then Shawnee County.
Correct.
Any other questions? I would move for approval on this. I think the last master plan was done in year 2000, I believe.
Yeah, 2000 or 2001.
And a lot's happened since then. I mean, as part of the trail plan, it probably dovetails in with the city's bikeway plan. So
Absolutely.
it's probably obsolete, our old one by now.
Yeah.
We have followed that plan for a number of years, and it's worked well, but it's getting to the end of its life.
A lot of great things.
Commissioner, I'll second. I'm sure you have a sheaf full of trails already plotted.
I do. So I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item F2, consider authorization and execution of contract C-353-2023 with Athco LLC, a Greenbush cooperative purchase of swings and a playground structure at Clyde O'Bracken Park in the amount of $52,165.58, utilizing American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funds.
Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. So yes, these are park improvements for Clyde O'Bracken. We want to bring in a small play structure and some swings and some picnic tables. That park has not received much love over the last few years, probably several years, and so we'd like to give it a little facelift. We did use the Greenbush Cooperative for this purchase, and this has gone through Shawnee County Cares Committee, so I would be happy to answer any questions.
Have we settled on Clyde O'Bracken as the name for this park?
That's already the name of the park.
It has 3 names.
No.
At least 2.
There's the signage, and for those that don't know, the park is directly across the street from the YWCA on 12th Street, or Huntington rather, and it's marked and designated by signage as the Clyde O'Bracken Park.
Correct.
I've heard it called Plaza Park, Sertoma
Park.
And Clyde O'Bracken, legend has it, had a used car lot near this site, but his little tagline was, if you drive it off this is his guarantee, if you drive it off the lot, it's yours. So I like Clyde O'Bracken. That sounds good to me. Anyway, I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item G, number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2023-50 establishing the 2024 holidays.
Is there any questions about the, okay, I would move for approval of the
Second.
resolution. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item G2, continue discussion over the preliminary 2024 budget.
Good morning, Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services. And we are ready to continue our discussion for the 2024 preliminary budget. This would not be final until after the public hearing, and then you have any discussions after that fact. And so this is just to establish a preliminary budget for going into the public hearing. I have shaded in the areas that you have not made decisions on yet in the light green, just to kind of help point them out. That doesn't mean that you can't go back to any of the other ones that you already had made decisions on and change those. I also changed the little dashes for a 0 to a 0. I thought it made it a little easier to see that also. So how would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
if we can go to capital outlay. I had that as one that we had our discussion during the CIP,
Yes.
and we established an amount, but I would move to approve what we have already preliminarily approved from our capital outlay discussion.
Just a second, let me look.
That amount was $2,110,000.
Does that, let's see, capital outlay. How much was that again?
$2,110,000.
We had a couple that were new debt. Would that not be part of this discussion?
No, this is just
Okay.
for capital outlay.
Yeah. Commissioner Mays, you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Okay. Capital outlay. I don't think we had planning on here as well. We had discussed that one. I would like to move that we approve the planning budget.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by,
Discussion.
oh, discussion, go ahead.
So I think we need to talk more about that extra position there. I know that we just reclassified a position in that department today. I'm still hesitant to add new FTEs throughout the entire county, to be honest. I think that we all saw over the last few days that we're funding a lot of vacancies right now that I don't want to end up funding any more vacancies, to be quite frank. And I don't doubt the need for this FTE, but I know that there's already a vacancy in that department now. I'm just hesitant to add another.
My concern would be if we reduce this 3 mile zone, we'll have a lot more on our plate. And this would help pave the way for that.
I would concur. I think that given the direction the commission has sent to the planning director, that we want the planning department to take on the reduction of the 3-mile radius, to take on more additional responsibilities. Additionally, I believe that with the reclassification that we did today, as well as with the direction by the commission, the planning director will be able to get those positions filled. And I'm sure that she's not going to leave these positions vacant very long.
So, if I may.
Sure.
You know, for years, we've heard from certain individuals in the community about how we need to work more closely with the city of Topeka in planning. And the two departments were, at one time, had one planning commission and split. I do think that the 3-mile radius needs to be addressed. I think that it's gonna save the city of Topeka money, but it's gonna cost us additional money. And I think those are conversations that we need to be having with the city of Topeka about, you know, how we're gonna work this moving forward. And I don't know, you know, obviously they've got an interim city manager right now, so it's tough to make too long range of decisions without knowing who's gonna be at the helm long-term. So, you know, I think this is probably a bigger conversation that we need to have with them at some point whenever they figure out who their new city manager is gonna be. But, I mean, I hate to take on additional cost without knowing exactly what the city of Topeka is gonna be doing in that department as well. So, I mean, I think there's just a lot of unknowns in that department right now.
I feel like it would help speed up development in our county. I think we move a little quicker, we're a little more nimble in our planning department. And you have all these people who aren't represented by anyone, so by reducing that donut, and I think they're willing to do this, I think they're, I don't know, I still feel like this is the direction we ought to go, and just to, I don't know.
I concur in your assessment, Commissioner. So I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion on the table. It's, motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 2-0. All right. Let's see.
Commissioner Rippon, can we
Yes.
take up the item of general expenses?
Yes, that would be fine.
There is a 44% increase to this area, and
Would you like me to go over the
please.
increase? 320,000 of that was increase in our property insurance. 250,000 is the risk management. I would like to set aside money in a risk management fund to offset costs from increased deductibles, as also put aside money for risk management in the future and try to start building that fund up. And then also 500,000 to put in the roof and parking lot fund that we started with the 2023, after the 2023 budget. We started it in 2023, but it was after that budget, so. It was, well, I take that back. It was part of the 2023 capital improvement plan, and so I'm just moving that to general expenses because there's really no reason for it to flow in and out of the capital improvement plan. So those three items make up that increase.
I'll move approval.
I would second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. All right.
Can we take up human resources?
Yes.
Commissioner Mays, this is a position that, again, is a department requesting an additional employee or new employee for a recruiter.
No, Community Corrections is requesting 2 new probation
No,
supervisors.
Human resources.
Human
I'm
resources.
sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you
No.
said community
No, human resources.
Okay, corrections. Okay, I apologize.
A new
I was on the
recruiter.
wrong page here.
And countywide advertising. And so the creation of this new position, is this one that, I know that you had made mention last week of maybe trying to pull more of the advertising into one area or one, instead of each department trying to advertise, or having the recruiting centralized as opposed to each department trying to recruit. Is that, having had the week to think about that, is that still kind of your line of thought, having it more centralized, or?
So, to be frank, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about, I had a good conversation with Angela, I felt like this morning, about, does advertising purchases need to go under our communications division? Rather than each individual department doing their own thing. I feel like it might be good if it comes from a centralized location. Amanda's got good relationships with the media, and I think that when we did the job fair, you and Stephanie had both worked pretty closely with each department to do that, but I kind of wonder if maybe those types of ad buys and things like that probably need to go through communications rather than each individual department. So I know, when Brian became a corrections employee, he probably didn't anticipate he'd be buying ads on the radio and stuff as well. It's not part of his main job function, but it's now become part of it, I guess. But so I mean, we've mentioned that, and then in terms of the recruiter position, I don't doubt that they need more people in HR. I just don't know if that's the right job title for it. I think it might maybe a little more broad.
What we asked for actually was an HR specialist too. They would have some recruiting function, but it's not just a recruiter that we're asking for.
Okay.
And the idea is by having this new position, they would be able to help fill the positions on a more expeditious manner than while you and Mr. Augustine are out working on other projects.
Absolutely. It would be another person in the office to help handle all of the day-to-day activities that we have.
And as far as the advertising goes, do you have any input or insight as to, right now, I mean, Department of Corrections does their ad buys, and then other departments work through your department on ad buys. How should we be going about this?
There is no one and easy way to do it. I think each department needs the latitude to do what they need to do for their advertised positions. What currently comes through HR is the Indeed and other kinds of advertising for positions right now, and we've spent just under $9,000 this year on that kind of things. And what happens is we set it up and then we bill the departments for that. Where you see more large advertising at maybe the health department and the DOC, they're using their budget from vacant positions to do that. They don't have a budget that is just dedicated to advertising for personnel. So we have an advertising and printing budget, but it's difficult to tell what's just printing versus what's just advertising in that. I don't know if it would be beneficial to have every department go through one central location. I'm not against trying anything. I think that Jennifer came up with an idea, Jennifer and Betty, in audit finance, that we could start tracking personnel expenses with a line item in the budget for each department. We could start doing that pretty easily now and have more information when we're setting up the 2025 budget.
Yeah, I hate to mess with it too much at this point because it'd be kind of an unknown to change the system as we have it. Yeah.
So at this time, maybe reduce that by the $17,000 being requested for the advertising?
Yeah, I think so, and just leave that one alone.
And as to the new position within HR, again, I've heard from a number of departments about that they wish that things could get going as quickly as possible to get these jobs filled. Not that they are complaining about HR or HR's operations, but just what can we do to make things get posted a little quicker, filled a little bit quicker, so that they can get these empties filled as quickly as possible. And I've heard that across the county from the multiple departments.
So,
And one more question,
Sure.
and you guys are fully staffed right now, correct? Okay.
okay. Yeah, no,
Well, I guess just a question for Commissioner Cook. If we took out the 17,000, would you want to move that to the communications? Or I guess that would go under the Board of County Commissioners budget, wouldn't it?
if you were gonna move the advertising over to them.
Right now, it's just being paid by the individual departments. But from vacant positions, so, you know, as you have a vacant position, you have more, you know, you have that budget to spend. That's how it's being handled right now.
That seems like a pretty good system, doesn't it? Or not?
Well, and it could even be handled centrally and billed to the department.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this would be, the billing would all go through HR with the 17,000?
The 17,000, the billing would be going through HR.
Yeah, the 17,000 we were requesting was for joint efforts throughout the county, not you know, career fairs, things like that, not just, you know, I'm advertising for the health department or the DOC today. That would be hard to divide. They have different needs. And even the bonus, the hiring bonuses and referral bonuses are able to be paid when those positions aren't filled.
Now, I will say, when we had the job fair, that I think was very successful, but all of those costs were then divided out among 10 departments or something like that. So there was a lot of, there was some processing, administrative time, you know, spent in spreading those out to all the different departments. But I think it was pretty much centralized through the commission office and through our, from our PIO.
So I would move for approval of the human resources less the 17,000.
One second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Okay. Let's look at facility management next. Betty, their increase, I can't read, it's just so small, I can't read it on the.
The increase is about 200,000. That was really a combination of a lot of different things. There was not any one area that I see had a lot. Repairs, 15,000, lawn service, 5,000, utility, or custodial temp, 7,000, software, 8,000. It was just kind of spread over
Okay.
a lot of different areas. There was overtime of 24,000.
Any comments or
Do you
questions?
want to address them?
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and Nelda, I think you had mentioned you were planning on doing a reorganization of your department at some point too,
Yes.
to try and fill vacancies, right? I mean,
To align the vacant positions with what I'm getting as applicants. Yes.
Do you have any comments?
No.
I think I could move for approval of this facility management budget.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. All right. You want to tackle Department of Corrections next? Or do you have it?
Yeah, we can tackle
I-
Department of Corrections.
I think that, let's hit that one next.
Brian Cole, Department of Corrections. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay. You had a number of positions you were asking for, with it.
I requested to fill all of them, to do that, you know, that we do have, this year, we did not fund, didn't mean we couldn't fill, but we did not fund 20. But we did request to fill all of them, that we, right now, when we got the vacancies and stuff like that, that the vacancy report is correct that we got from Audit Finance, but I have several still going through the process. I have about 8 to 10 people. They're not in the system because they're just going through the process and things like that. But, you know, we're not close to filling those, the existing 20. I mean, we're within 8, we have it almost there. I have a feeling, I'm confident that we would go into that 20, but we understand that, you know, I'm not going to ask for any more new positions as far as corrections specialists until I'm able to demonstrate that we can fill the ones that we have.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Brian Cole and I have had discussions about these positions and how do we know what the appropriate staffing level is for the Department of Corrections. And in follow-up with that, speaking with the Audit Finance Director Greiner, as part of the original wage study that was done, and this would have been 8 years ago when we had the initial, there was a staffing analysis for the Department of Corrections, but we've not had any updated staffing analysis for Department of Corrections in that time period. And I think that we're probably due to do a staffing analysis of what is the appropriate staffing level for the jail. The jail is our largest pool of employees. It also represents the largest possibility of liability, wanting to make sure that we have it properly staffed, that the inmates are safe, that our staff is safe. So.
With that, and I remember when it was CBiz and Jim Crowell led that, at that time they did that. I spoke specifically with CBiz. The problem is that when you don't run into when you don't have an industry specific staffing analysis, you run into the problem of CBiz did a staffing analysis and compared us to another facility that was 700 inmates. We were totally different than them. I have more posts. I have more. We follow the National Institute of Corrections staffing analysis, which I have. We do a staffing analysis at the jail every year. We updated our staffing analysis there. But we follow the same relief factors that the National Institute of Correction does, because when you look at a staffing analysis specific for the jail, it's just kind of like when Director Lewis had mentioned that SHRM, who is kind of the industry standard for human resource. We go to industry standard professionals to do corrections. We don't go to just a company that says, can you do a staffing analysis, because they don't know the business. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. But when you look at a staffing analysis, you look at the different posts you have. You look at the classification, you look at the programs you have, you look at the different levels of inmates you have, and things like that, and your population and things like that. So, you know, I'm more than happy to do a staffing analysis. I won't say 100%, I'm 99% positive. What you're gonna find out is what we did. When we do our staffing analysis, we go through Kansas Department of Corrections, and they have validated every staffing analysis we have. We're probably, I'm not asking for any new CSs. What I will tell you is every staffing analysis that we've had done professionally since 2000 would show you that the adult detention center is probably 30 to 40 positions less than, or more, they need on top. The juvenile is about 20. I have no motivation whatsoever to ask for new positions until we can demonstrate we can do with what we have at the facility. Because of our staffing. I will say since 2000, our staffing, we have been able to eliminate almost 30 positions at the jail through staffing analysis and you know, cutting even administrative so we weren't too there. But I'm more than happy to, I did reach out to 2 companies. I reached out to a company that Angela Lewis gave me with Christina Dietrich. They do not do staffing analysis. Evergreen does. And they did give us a quote for about $20-some thousand just for the jail, and things like that. So it would, when you're looking at a staffing analysis at the Department of Corrections, it would be me is that I would insist that they have industry expertise to be able to look at. You can't take my jail and Wyandotte County Jail and say, you guys need the same thing. What happened at our jail is they built it, we have 16 housing, or 15, 16 housing modules that hold really small amount of inmates. You can go to somewhere like Tulsa and they have 1 to 100 inmates. And so they have less inmates, or less, staff. But yes, you know, if there was a cut to our budget, which, you know, I know that we want to get back to no raise of a mill levy or things like that, you know, if we didn't fund 5 positions at the jail, that's approximately $425,000 there. And I think we could sustain that. Because it doesn't mean I can't fill them, but if we didn't fund them, then that just means if we got within that last 5, we would work closely with HR and them again to see if we have the existing budget we have. But yeah, I would, you know,
Brian,
I'm just giving you
if we were not to fund those 5 positions, from a monetary standpoint, what's that look like?
about $425,000 that we would cut from our budget.
And is that reasonable at this time today to say that we would be able to not fund those 5 positions, but reevaluate
Oh, absolutely.
your staffing analysis?
Absolutely. I always want to fill what we have, But I understand that, yeah, I offered that in talk to each one of the commissioners and say that I think that for us to be proactive, that we should be looking at things, and staffing is where it would be. So if that was what was the decision, that I would go back to our team and I would say, look, we're not funding, or if this was what was approved, they're not funding 5 positions for 2024, we move forward. Yeah.
Commissioner Mays.
So Brian, on the list that I have, we have 28 vacancies for corrections specialists. Right now, only 8 of them are funded. Is that?
Yes. And I have about, I think yesterday, we had 3 interviews this week. We have, of all the 28 positions of, I have the custodians, I have 2 people going through custodians. We have 2 promotions that we're going through right now, existing approved budgets, 28. 8 of those are currently funded, yes.
Okay.
And we lost 2 or 3 the other day, so it is off and on. And we already have a plan in place. We looked at, and I think it was a while back, we approved maybe looking into that first 5 if we have funds available, and we would work with Betty and them with the contingency and stuff like that. But my main point is to get to the funded, it'll be a banner day if I can get through all the funded ones. And if we can come around and talk about the unfunded, then that's great.
Also wanted to talk, you've got 2 corrections specialists, 2 positions open, and a lead corrections specialist as well that's been open for quite some time.
Yes. The lead corrections specialist was due to a retirement. He left here a couple months ago. We kept it open just to reevaluate the area of the training area. We do plan to fill that. That person is a field training coordinator. They're the ones that supervise our field training officers that go through all of our on-site field training, a lot of it for the juvenile. And so those have been very, very positive. And when we're working with industry people, even human resource staff, having a person over all of our field training officers is somebody that they step in our field training officer as well, if we have a field officer. But so yes, that is a lead correction specialist. The correction specialists too, those are people that we designated just through our union negotiations. Anybody that's been past 5 years, they go from CS1 to a CS2. And we're in the process of filling those. We have, I think 7 that are going through the process right now. Some of them are juveniles where we need the most right now.
Okay, so and I see one of those has only been open for a week, so I assume that's probably going to get filled before too long. The lead correction specialist, you're not looking at reclassifying that, changing the job title or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
We're looking at keeping that the same. There's only 2. We're not looking at reclassifying anything up or anything down. We'd like to keep that, because what we did was we had a CS2 in that area, and they were basically over CS2s. And the union and I mentioned this a long time ago to the human resource, and it's been a while, that the union felt that it was kind of difficult having the same rank overseeing the work of somebody the same rank. And so that's why we went to the CS3, basically a corporal level, which within the union, and that has been very well received and has been a very good program. Basically, the only thing new we asked for this year was basically the reentry officer.
And the reentry officer, let's talk about that for a second. I think it's actually a very well-intentioned position. I think that when we look at recidivism and things like that, the reentry officer is something that we probably could really use to maybe help get these folks jobs and get them, sobriety services and things like that as well.
It is very important. We have done with that. We had a reentry officer several years ago, and we had not refilled that because our staffing was so low. It's like, look, we're just not going to, and we repurposed that position, and I'll be upfront with everybody. We repurposed that position. We're getting to the point to where jails are very expensive to build, and we have to start looking at what the industry progress is in looking at, and there's more emphasis on reentry, meaning can we start the reentry the minute they start walking in, is saying what medications you on, who is your doctor, primary care or behavioral health care, what jobs you have. You don't have a job, so we look at those, what they call criminogenic risk factors, to say, basically they're like drug and alcohol, behavioral health, criminal, home, work. So we're starting to do that, and we've initiated a lot of new programs through the Rotary of Topeka and things like this. This is a very valuable position of looking at the reentry to lower recidivism. It is one that we haven't had for a while, but we're, with our staffing improving, we thought this was the appropriate time to ask. You know, we've started our work release program up. It is now hitting a good pace now. We're very carefully reassessing the inmates that can go into work release and things like that. But yes, it is a very important position, but you know, it would be something that would help us move us to the next level and, you know, help us lower maybe incoming people and stuff like that. But again, we understand it's a new cost to the facility, and we haven't had it, but is it something we need? Yes, but if it's something that is decided on that we need to forego at this time, we understand.
Is that position more appropriate under the DOC or under community corrections?
It's ours. It's there. We have our community corrections has all their people that are dealing with the specialists in this. This is strictly for incarcerated people that are coming in, and that is very typical in jails to have a reentry coordinator there. We do have one with Armor that is doing reentry as well. They do a lot more in contact with maybe doctor's offices and stuff. This is more of a program. This person would be in our programs area to start dealing with. We see you know, this inmate doesn't have any housing. Let's start talking about housing. You're in the alternative sentencing program. Let's see how we can get you transportation. You need a job. Let me start looking at how we can get you into the work release program so I can get you jobs. And now we've already had 2 or 3 people in a new program. We're funding ourselves through the inmate wellness on our success, work for success, which we've already had 2 graduates for that. And it's off-site. So it helps coordinate our efforts for reentry and to prevent recidivism. So we're just not opening the door, kicking them out and saying, go fend for yourself. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's needed. The last thing I'll say is that I've led an intercept, sequential intercept mapping program in Shawnee County, and Dr. Locke is over that committee. But one of the, basically what it is that where inmates fall in the intercepts of criminal justice, where gaps, it's a gap analysis of what you have. Reentry probably, or discharge planning probably is the biggest area that we lack in Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I'm not saying there's not areas, but when you're talking about reentry, we're talking about having a reentry committee that works with tons of people in the community that says, here's 5 files that people are getting out, and we're going to start working with them. We know there's going to be people that are going to go to prison. We will work with the State Department of Corrections on their reentry plan. On basically, it just means we're transferring you up to the prison. But we do see people that are leaving. Some of them are unreachable, meaning some people come in and they get without. They get in, get out. We don't have the ability to really give them any wraparound services. But I had a meeting yesterday with Vallejo about how we can improve our systems of release, especially behavioral health and suicide inmates, and this would go right along with that of discharge medication and being able to say, we can get you out to Vallejo, instead of me having to call Jim and saying somebody jumped, we kicked somebody out of the jail and somebody jumped off the bridge. And
are you confident you can fill the position?
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm confident we can, if awarded, yes.
Brian, if we were to unfund 5 positions, would you prefer it be correction specialist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, that was 427.
425,000, yes.
And that's still 15 more than we funded this year.
Yes.
I mean, I think it might be good if, I'd say if we unfunded maybe 8 and funded this reentry specialist. I feel like at this time, I think that's an important job. I'd like to see that happen.
We could live with that.
You
Is
said
that a motion?
So, yeah, I'll make a motion.
Would you say that again?
Excuse me.
The motion is to approve the Department of Corrections budget minus 8 corrections specialist jobs, which would be unfunded for this year, and then add the reentry specialist. So,
I believe it was 85,000 a position.
The reentry is already in there.
Right. So all I would be subtracting
so we would
is
just
8
we'd be taking
positions
out
at
the
85,000
8
each.
corrections specialists would be unfunded.
680,000.
Yeah.
Is that too severe a cut for you?
Well, any cut's severe in my
I
eyes.
know that.
But my deal is here's what I'm saying, we'll make it work.
Well, another thing to keep in mind is that they have calculated overtime at 10% of
Correct.
all of their positions, including all of these vacants. So if their overtime goes down, then they would potentially have overtime
To fill a
that could
position.
be used to fill a
If
position.
we get to that last 8,
Okay.
I'm gonna come right back to audit, finance, and HR and say, we're at a banner day at the jail. Let's look at how we can fund this
Right.
with the existing budget we have.
And I would expect you to do that.
This is better than last year.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Yeah.
going to,
That's
12,
right.
12 more than last year, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it is a better position, so.
I would, I'll second that.
thank you.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Brian.
Brian, don't go so far. Let's take up community corrections.
You know, that's, you know.
Brian Cole, Community Corrections.
They were asking for 2 new positions.
Yes, the reason we're doing this is twofold. Number one, we have one of the highest caseloads that come in Kansas, number one. Number two, we have been very successful with a lot of our programs. The biggest issue is that what we have here is no really medium area level supervision or supervisor position. Basically, you're going from line staff all the way up to a captain. And we are trying to find better ways to prepare our leaders for succession. When somebody retires, they've had supervisor or managerial responsibilities before then. So basically, we're trying to put in 2 new people, the one in juvenile, one in adult, that if somebody has the opportunity of promotion, that they understand how to do budgets, they understand how to do the policy procedure with KDOC, instead of going from line staff all the way up to one of the highest levels, because you have deputy director and captain overseeing community corrections. And right now, I have 2 division managers who are doing some of these roles, that this would also allow them to start acting a little bit more in their role of policy development, working closely with some mandates that we feel are going to be coming down with the Kansas Department of Corrections when it comes to some things like that. But this is what that was for, to help out more efficient supervision, to help us out with the increase of programming that we're doing, and also to provide a successful succession plan for our staff at Community Corrections.
Other questions?
And I believe the cost of those was $190,000.
Yeah,
What were those
189.
positions called?
Let's see, do you have that, Eve?
They weren't
Oh, excuse me.
What did he
I'm
say?
sorry, I have it.
Oh.
Probation supervisors.
probation supervisors.
Is one of them yours? Is this pictures? I'm sorry.
I would approve 1.
1.
Second.
Motion's been made by.
Sorry, I didn't hear what the motion was.
I would move that
1.
we approve one
One.
of those positions and
Okay.
and the remainder of the
Probation.
budget.
Probation supervisor. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
All right,
And Commissioners,
yes.
you have now reduced the mill levy, or the estimated mill levy.
They didn't actually approve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You had to approve the budget.
Sorry.
What's this?
You didn't-
I'm jumping ahead of you.
You took that one, only approved one position, but you didn't approve community corrections.
Okay,
Budget, yeah.
I will move that we approve the community corrections.
I thought that's what my
I
motion was.
thought it
You-
was.
No, you won't, I just said approve one position. That's all I wrote down. I didn't hear you say and approve the budget.
Can we amend
If you
sure I
wanted
did,
to, if you wanted, we-
I'll make, you made another motion, I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. So that
Thank you.
approves
Yes,
the
thank you.
the
Okay.
community corrections budget.
So
All right.
now I can say that that would, on a preliminary basis and on an estimated mill levy, that would now be lower than the current year's mill levy.
Okay. All right,
Not by much.
not by much. You want the health or sheriff next?
Let's take up the sheriff.
Sheriff would be fine. Sheriff's Department?
Sorry, just a minute. It's out of your way.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Hill with Shawnee County Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff, you had asked for 5 new positions within your department. And if we could, again, kind of touch on these new positions and where those come from.
Okay. Over this past week, we've done performed a need assessment for all the positions within the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. Just for a little perspective, next year we have 25 deputies that are retirement eligible. We have 11 civilian support staff that are also retirement eligible. While we don't anticipate a mass exodus from the sheriff's office, we do want to keep an eye on that because it takes a significant amount of time to train up individuals for those slots to replace. I know when you look at the positions posted, we do have some positions that have been open that have not been posted, but after taking a deep dive and looking, those positions have not been posted mostly because of lack of training ability to get them hired, trained, and on the floor. So it's kind of 1 in or 2 in, whatever our training staff allows, to move them on. And so we fully anticipate filling those open positions. The new positions that we've asked for, we asked for one for the crime center that we're opening up. I believe that to be a huge safety aspect for the county that's going to benefit us all. 2 of those deputy positions was for extended duties related to courthouse security. As we've expanded, we're going to need to upgrade the security, both the courthouse and this building as well. And then we've asked for 2 dispatch positions. You know, historically, dispatch at one point in time had over 40-something dispatchers, and they did away with some of those positions when I really got to looking at it because they just couldn't fill them, so they just didn't fund them for some of those years. We're in a position now, we're getting people back in the door, we're getting them hired and the ability to fill those slots. We believe that's a huge needed for our dispatch center to continue to grow. It takes as much time to train a dispatcher as it does a deputy. So when we lose somebody like that, we're 6 to 9 months out from putting another dispatcher on the floor. So that was the positions that we've asked for. Having said that, we want to be good stewards of the monies that come out of here. After looking at the deputy positions, we believe we could take one of those deputy positions off the board and just ask for the 2 deputies and the 2 dispatch positions.
I noticed you had an animal control officer. This position's been open for several years. Is we getting by fine without that, or we have a way that we make up for?
Well,
not
we've
having-
just hired our 2nd animal control officer, and we're still down 1, correct?
Shane Hubler, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. Yes, we have had 3 positions historically. We had a very hard time filling even our 2nd position, and that is why the 3rd position has been open for an extended time. Once we get, if this current employee that we just hired maintains, then we would look to fill that 3rd animal control position.
Is that position a sworn officer? I mean, do they go through all the same training as everyone else?
No, they're not a sworn law enforcement officer, no, sir.
Okay. My
Betty?
question, I mean, is that something that should be part of the sheriff's department, or?
It is.
Is this, it is, okay.
It is part of the sheriff's office. Helping Hands receives the dogs and cats and small that are received, but I've had sheriff deputies out rounding up goats, cows, horses, so.
Yeah, they actually stay pretty busy in the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
Betty, audit finance, the sheriff's office has historically had some reserves or monies left over at the end of the year. Do you know how much that was in the remainder of 2022? I mean,
I'm sorry, I do not. I know that a lot of times they either spend it at the end of the year or put it aside for projects. I would have to go back and look.
I know that we like at the end of the year, we'll pre-purchase fuel
Yes.
or tires or
Yes.
things that we know are going to be necessities.
Generally, every year they pre-purchase fuel, or we encumber money for that fuel, about 250,000.
That's sheriff. This is days it's been open. So.
I'll go if he's.
Commissioner Mays?
So, in talking about the 911 center, I mean, obviously, this is a super important job. Like, we need as many people as we can in there. I understand training is hard. We've got, right now, 12 vacancies in the 911 center, and that's different jobs, so supervisors, call takers, specialists. Do you know kind of like where that was a year or 2 ago? I mean, were we at 20 jobs and now we're at 12, or were we at 6 jobs and now we're, I mean, any idea, like, what's the trend going there?
Well, I know a couple of years ago, they was at minimums to the point of I was seriously contemplating having deputies come in, and we did have some deputies come in and man dispatch consoles in a couple emergency situations.
Well, I know we've had an emergency management employee that
Yes.
has moonlighted over there a little bit.
We are trending up as far as number of dispatchers on the floor. Over the last 3 to 4 years, we have been able to continually add. Part of the problem is what we're seeing is just getting those people trained up. A lot of people can't handle that stress level piece, so we're seeing a lot of new hires that don't make probation and that aren't able to make it. But our numbers have trended up over the course of the last 3 to 4 years, and we hope to continue to fill those. Part of the problem with why we have those positions, like the CS1 positions open, is we can only train so many at a time. We only have so many trainers, et cetera, and that kind of lends into why we have floor supervisor position open, why we have shift supervisor position open, because they have different sets of duties, and hopefully once we can get the CS1s and the CS2s filled, then we can make some promotions and get up to a full staffing situation.
If you like, you can stand up.
It's always a little bit awkward talking when we're standing up.
It
but,
is. It's weird.
Have there been any changes to the org chart in the 911 center? I mean, if training is the problem, I mean, do we have a designated trainer, or are we taking people off of their call center, their desk, to do that function?
We do have a designated trainer. The dispatch center has, just like the patrol has field training officers, they basically have field training people who they'll sit at the desk and learn, but we have a training system and trainers that do that full time.
We actually have one full-time position that's the majority of our duties is training. They run our academy. We also have an intermittent person that helps out specifically with that. And then all the CS2s are field training officers, for lack of a better term.
Does KLETC do anything with 911 dispatch training?
No, and the problem with dispatch center, as I've learned, is you go from city to city, there's enough significant changes that it's hard to have a common, like you take all the police officers and send them to KLETC to train, and they learn this, but the technology differs a lot from city to city even, so we pretty much have to train in-house here.
Okay. Are you getting applicants?
We are getting applicants now. So that's exciting.
I'm gonna sit down.
Can we also talk about the OA2 jobs that you've got open? Because I counted up, I think countywide we had, what did I said it earlier, I think it was like 18 office assistant 2 jobs open right now. It was quite a few. What's that?
There are several
Yeah.
throughout the county.
Yeah. And I know you've, on this listing here, I know you've got 8 of them open. 2 of them actually have only been open for a week, so don't count those probably. But
Our OA2 positions are kind of constantly in a hiring state. We have openings that come and go out of different divisions, but by and large, an OA2 at the sheriff's office is an OA2 at the sheriff's office. We have to find people that are willing to work second and third shift. If they're in records, that eliminates a certain amount of candidates, but we have seen quite a few more applicants come in here of late, and are hoping that we can get all of those positions filled. We may not have all of them posted. An OA2 at the sheriff's office is one, and if we're not getting any applicants, then we didn't see the need in posting literally all of them.
so a couple of them, they're, like it says, like one is OA2 special deputy. What does that mean exactly and compared to the others? I mean, if they're all the same, why does it say that?
There's a couple different answers to that question. One is historical, that goes back well into the 90s, when the sheriff at the time determined that the clerical staff at the sheriff's office constituted, they had to pass a more stringent background check. They have to become NCIC certified, et cetera. And that was the move at the time to get them compensated for the extra duties and responsibilities and certifications that they had to have. Through bargaining with the Teamsters, and by all means, anybody that wants to correct me on this, I think I'm correct. Those special deputy positions have subsequently been absorbed into just a regular office assistant 2. That's just how they are with the employee numbers, that they're still attached. Somebody may have retired and they didn't get reclassified to a regular OA2.
Okay, so it's they're just, the title is different because they were just never changed. But they do the same thing as the other OA2s,
That
right?
is
So,
correct.
okay, they're not still required to go through that additional training and stuff. So if you posted this, though, it would be posted on the website as a special deputy, or?
It would be posted just as an OA2. There is no difference between an OA2 and a special deputy anymore. They
Okay.
still, an OA2 at the sheriff's office is an OA2, whether it's an OA2 or an OA2 special deputy. There used to be a difference between the clerical staff that wrote bonds in the warrants unit or served PFAs out of the process unit. That is where the special deputy commission came along. It has long been since why they're not all just classified as OA2s now. I couldn't answer that question.
Well, that leads me to another question is, should there be a special deputy assignment for some of these jobs that maybe is separate from an OA2? Would those be, I mean, it sounds to me like it's kind of halfway between a sworn officer and a civilian officer. You know, I mean, is that something that we need more of? Or, I mean, I know they eliminated it, so it'd probably be a little more difficult to put those back on the books that way, but, I mean, what do you think?
That was done through negotiations with the Teamsters, is the short version of that answer.
Fair enough.
A lot of AO2s there.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm quite ready to make any modifications to their budget just yet. Betty, what's our timeline on all this? Like, because we're down to just a few items, but
Right. We will have next Thursday, again, before our public hearing. And Cindy, were we able to keep the public hearing at the same date?
Yep, everything's okay.
Okay, so our public hearing will be Monday, the 21st. So we will have the 17th, which is next Thursday, before we would have our public hearing. I would like, if possible, I don't want to hurry you because I know these are important decisions, but I would like to have a preliminary budget for the public hearing. I think that would be transparency for the public.
But they don't ever adopt the budget at the.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no, you
so
will not
they still have-
adopt any budget.
Yeah, they have time after.
Until after the public hearing. Yeah, this is just to adopt a preliminary budget.
You haven't, yeah, they have the whole month of September. You don't have to have the budget to be
Right.
until 1st of October, so
Yeah.
debate away.
I agree with Betty, though. I want to have it at least pretty much buttoned up by the time we have our public hearing. Although these are public hearings too, I guess. If somebody wanted to get up and talk, they could. So,
So you need more time to think about it.
Yeah.
But you will have
Okay.
one more regular commission meeting before the public hearing.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you, Sheriff.
I wouldn't,
What about Vallejo? I think we have,
There's a request to increase Vallejo by 225,000 from last year.
Yes, and that's just, you just allocate them a flat amount of money. That is a 13% increase, I believe.
I think Bill's on the phone here.
13%.
Bill, are you with us?
I do have Bill by phone. I'm Tyler LeBeer, currently serving as the chair for
Okay.
Vallejo. And
Morning, Commissioners. Morning, Betty, staff.
All right. And they're looking for
And this is, again, not just to Vallejo, it goes to Family Service and Guidance Center as well as Breakthrough House. So there's multiple agencies that receive this.
correct.
Right.
I would move for approval as the requested amount.
Yeah, I would second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Okay, that gets.
And that is, I mean, what did we give them last year? It was 2,500,000, but it was 500 of it was funded
extra.
through ARPA. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that
500,000 was from ARPA.
ARPA funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You want to take up Parks and Recreation or the Stormont-Vale Event Center or Health? Those are our 4 areas remaining.
Let's tackle health next. See what we can.
Sorry, my zeros went away, so I'm trying to get this back up so it shows zeros rather than dashes. I'm not having any, I'm trying to get the commas in there and also the zeros, and it's not working, so. I think the comma is more helpful than the other. So we'll do the commas. Okay. Dollars might work. Okay, let me try that. Nope. Sorry. Okay, let me move this down here. There we go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Teresa Fisher, Director of the Health Department.
Morning.
Good morning. Teresa, you had asked for 5 new positions. Is that correct? Or is it 5 positions that were funded by COVID that?
No, I did not ask for any new positions in my budget this year, so I do still have, on the budget, there are 5 positions that originated out of the COVID division. So I'll go through those. We have 1 certified medical assistant that is vacant, not posted. We have an epidemiologist that is vacant, not posted. We have an accountant 1 that is vacant and not posted. The 2 other positions that still remain out of that infectious disease division are a health services team leader. That has been, I would say, reclassified to take over all of our infectious diseases, not just COVID. So any outbreaks here in the community, that is now the team leader that oversees that. They also oversee the tuberculosis program. And then we also have a filled administrative assistant that remains from that division. The clinical services division did not have an administrative assistant, and so that person has taken on really numerous duties, ranging from community meetings, just helping out around the office, phone calls, anything you can imagine that an administrative assistant would do.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Teresa, in years past, the health department had its own reserves funds that it operated from, and then when there were issues within the health department with maybe there were new funding or no funding allocated by the commission, the reserves were drawn from. And then we moved those reserves and then they became part of the county's general reserves, right?
You are correct, Commissioner.
I'm sorry. Technically, they have not been moved yet. They are still in that fund because we will have to bring that to you to get direction to move them, but that is the plan.
How much is, Betty, how much is there in that reserve?
About $1 million. Slightly over, 1.1, I think.
And is that reserves, does it have?
And part of those reserves, we will also need to move to the retirement fund.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly how much that was going to be, but I can get those numbers for you. 275,000 that would need to be moved to the retirement fund.
But as it stands right now, those monies are not in the general reserves. Those are
That's
still
correct.
at the health department.
That's correct, because we needed to finalize 2022.
Okay.
before we were ready to do that, and then we will come to you and ask to do that.
And how much of that $1 million will need to be allocated to the retirement fund?
About 275,000.
Okay. So of the remaining,
So
sep-
800,000.
okay, of the remaining 800,000, are there restrictions on it and how it can be used, or is it just going to go directly into the general reserves?
It will just go into as revenue, which will go into the reserves.
Okay.
Or it'll be a transfer. I'm sorry, it won't mean going, it'll go as a transfer.
And Teresa, in speaking with you, it's my understanding that some of these positions are, the reason why we're looking at such a large amount of a increase to your department is COVID funding went away.
Correct.
Grant funding wasn't there that we had maybe thought was going to be there. Is that accurate, or?
Yes, I think I can address all of those. So let's start with the reserves. So you all were supplied with information from Audit Finance about the reserves that the Health Department has used over the past several years. And so looking at that and what they had requested and what they used, there is a gap that has to be made up. If we don't have those reserves to use, that's just a dollar amount that we don't have. And, it ranged anywhere from, it looks like the lowest amount was, $262,000 up to over $1 million one year. So those reserves were used to fill those gaps if we didn't receive an increase in our requests from you, or if the grants simply did not cover what we needed, whether it was grants we didn't receive. We've been here and talked quite a bit about the aid to local grants. That is predominantly what we have as a local health department to fund us. That is not unique to us. That is what most local health departments here in the state use. You were presented with information that these grants do not keep up with the pace of our salary studies. And so what may initially, when a new employee comes on at step one, that grant may cover it for a while, but as those salary studies happen and those salary increases happen, they quickly outpace the grants. Some of the grants are formula driven. No matter how well crafted the grant application is, it doesn't, at the end of the day, mean any additional grant dollars, and we're still doing the same amount of work and still wanting to keep our high quality staff. You also spoke of the COVID grants. So yes, since 2020, we have received a large amount of COVID grants. That was presented in our budget presentation. I don't have that number right on the top of my head. But we use those COVID grants for the positions that I mentioned that funded that division. We've let numerous other positions go. Those are the remaining 5 positions that we have from that division. All others have been let go. The work has been reorganized, reclassified into different positions, but those COVID grants funded much more than those positions. Those COVID grants, again, were additional gap filling over the years for us. So whether it helped pay for our health officer, it helped pay for our EMR cost, there are a multitude of operating costs that those grants have helped cover that were grant allowable since 2020. And so that is largely in due part, with all of those coupled together, the reason for the large request this year.
Teresa, I had asked last week, maybe for an analysis breakdown of what would be the impact to the health department if you did not receive the full amount requested. If you only received $1 million, or you only received $400,000. And so your department, I know, has done some analysis. What did you come up with? What would be the impacts?
Yeah. So we looked at 3 different scenarios as requested. So the first one was the $400,000 cut, meaning we would receive $1 million increase of what we're asking for. While we would still feel those cuts, we felt like we could likely manage those cuts. We would essentially eliminate the vacant positions that I've listed. The one that concerns me the most is the community health planner, and I think I would really need to get creative into how we could keep that due to the nature of the work in the community that we would want that position to do. The other impact, besides the positions, is we do think it will affect some of our family planning services, with the notion that we spend, some of those cuts would happen in the pharmaceuticals in that area. And so towards the end of the grant year, next spring, we may or may not have those services available to clients, depending on what our supply is. Scenario 2 was $1 million cut, and we would be looking at eliminating not only those 6 vacant positions, but the cuts would go deep beyond that. We would have to look at an additional vacant position that would be one of our nurse positions, as well as 6 additional filled positions. So at that point, we talk about layoffs. We talk about getting into union bumping, things of that sort. And we look at service delivery and the programs that we would likely not be able to continue to do. After many hours of looking at numbers, we couldn't even get to that number still. It would require deeper cuts than that. So the significance that we feel beyond the internal walls would likely be felt largely in our community. I don't see that we would be able to stay at some of our community partner boards that we're at. I think our state formula grant could also be at risk because it's based on our tax allocation. We would be looking at cuts potentially to child care licensing, putting children here in our community at risk for daycare centers that we're not able to regulate and do their annual
I'm going to
visits.
stop you right there. That position, the child care, the daycare, they're the ones that go out and inspect the daycares to make sure that they meet all of the standards and that they're delivering safe services to families.
Correct. They do an annual inspection visit at each licensed daycare, whether it's a home daycare or a facility. These are the individuals that also handle all of the complaints that are received. Those go direct to those surveyors who are required to investigate complaints on any of those providers.
Sorry, can I ask a question on that? Just, I want a clarification on it. You said that the state has contracted that to us, so do they pay us for that?
Well, that's one of those grants that we receive from Aid to Local.
Okay.
But again, it doesn't fully cover the cost. It covers about half of the cost of what we have for that program.
Thank you.
Teresa, recognizing that a $1 million cut, you say, would really have detrimental impacts to the health department. A $400,000 cut would have impacts, but sustainable impacts. Are there grant funding opportunities that we're not availing ourselves of or not tapping into that maybe we could look into for 2024 to make up that difference or to fill that gap?
Well, Commissioner Cook, I feel like my team and I look at grants every day of the week. We have our internal database of grants that we're going out to and looking for. The challenge becomes who's writing the grant, who has the capacity. We recently wrote for 2 of the opioid grants. One was our first federal grant. It's not a quick turnaround time. So making sure that we have adequate time to give a quality grant application, come before you to request to even apply, and making sure that we get that application submitted in time. So I can say that, yes, we'll continue to look. We're always looking for grants to fill gaps in our community here at the health department and what we can provide. And we know that the more grants we have, that rate lowers our request. I mean, we fully understand that. But sometimes the grants just don't exist, and sometimes they're very competitive. And we think what we've put together is a quality grant application, but at the end of the day, it's could be subjective to the reviewers.
Can I
Absolutely.
interject something also? We also are looking at a grant search program, an online program that might help just to, and that's not to say that we would find anything that they aren't already, but it would automatically notify you. You put in your criteria, it automatically notifies you.
And Betty, in years past, grants are a little bit of a double-edged sword in that the cost of administrating the grant can sometimes take us as much work as what you might get from the grant.
Yes, absolutely, and you've got to watch, and you have to analyze, like as with anything else, you analyze the grant and what it would pay for, what your administrative costs would be. Now, a lot of times, a grant will allow you to use the administrative costs as an eligible expense up to a certain amount.
And Betty, just, again, we're here, this is a budget hearing and discussion. If the commission was to say, they wanted to cut $400,000 from that budget. Actually, let me rephrase. They wanted to cut the whole 1.4. Let's say the whole 1.4 was a motion made. Could a secondary motion be made to take the remainder of the reserves to fund that?
What you would do is you would not cut that much of the budget. You would just cut and when we would have another line at the bottom that would say, we are using reserves for this.
And then
So-
knowing that it's one time?
Yes.
And
Yes. So you would basically, what you would be doing is you would be budgeting your expenses higher than your revenue, is how you would do that. Because you could not use reserves under the excess reserve policy
But
for
it's-
operational costs, so that's why you would
But
do
those
it
aren't
that way.
reserves yet. I mean, those aren't part of the general reserves.
That's
yet.
right, and that's why I'm saying you would do it based on, well, for 24, they would be part of reserves, that's correct. They will be put in 23.
Okay.
So what we would do, what I'm telling you is there's a way to do it, but you would just not show it as a reduction to her budget. You would show it that it's not going to be coming from levied money.
Gotcha, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Are these reserves in any way tied to accreditation or anything like that? Do we have-
Yes, and that's why we have our fund balance policy. That's why we, keep our fund balance.
I think, Commissioner, you were asking about the health department's accreditation?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your question is, are the
Are the reserves tied to your accreditation? Do they look at something like that, say it's something you have to have or need?
No, accreditation would not be looking at any of our financial pieces.
They used to, when we had a federally qualified health clinic, then it was required, and that's why it was a separate fund.
That's why it's there?
That's why it was a separate fund, because at that point in time, we did need a certain amount of reserves for that.
Couldn't understand why we even had it there, but, all right.
Well, again, it's the carryover from when we had the health agency in addition to the health department, when we had the FQHC before that was then removed and moved over to Grace Med. And so there's been a lot that has occurred over the last decade.
Yes.
On those reserves, what was the maximum that they've been? When we started tapping into those a few years ago, how much was there initially?
Well, at one time, I think, and I'd have to pull up the numbers, but at one time, I think when we divested the health clinic, there was about $3 million, $3 million or $3.5 million in reserves, I think. And then at one point in time, there's been a couple years where we actually added to the reserves, and then other years where we drew down on the reserves.
And are those reserves earning interest?
Oh, yes.
Or are they, okay.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not opposed to them having reserves. I don't think we necessarily need to.
Well, but they're going away.
No, the reserves that are now in that fund,
They're going.
when they will be, yes,
That's it.
they will be transferred from that, what was the health department fund, will be transferred to the general fund in 2023.
So they will no longer exist, but they're not part of our general reserves at this moment.
Right.
I gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
And so we will have
But they
about-
will be in 23.
But we're going to have about $870,000 at the end of 2023 that will then become part of the general reserves.
I would say more like 800,000.
800,000, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
800,000
Yeah.
at the end of 2023 that would then become part of the general reserves.
During the year. We'll, now that we have the audit completed, we'll be bringing that to you pretty soon, probably.
Okay, so going back to the grant-funded positions, you and I had spoken, and it was mentioned several of these positions are like 30% grant-funded.
Correct, yes. We did speak, so there are 4 RNs listed on the sheet that you received. So we've got an RN in maternal child health, that is actually 60% grant funded, 40% required match. Then we have an RN in infectious disease float, an RN in tuberculosis float, and then an RN that's not posted, that's our immunization position. So those 3 RN positions at 10th Street are all approximately 30% funded. We use our state formula fund to cover a portion of all of those positions.
And so with those positions, even though they're not filled, we're still getting 30% of that cost from the state then? Or does that funding come in as one lump sum and then we allocate it accordingly based off of their formulas that they give us, or?
I believe the state formula is, it's not, I don't believe it's reimbursable. I don't know for sure, if either of you know. We will receive the complete lump sum throughout the course of the grant year. And so that state formula fund is more, it has less strings attached to it, if you will, of what we can allow it for. A lot of grants do not cover clinical services, so that's why we use that grant specifically over there. In addition, there are so few grants that actually cover our clinical services. There are no specific grants for STI services. We're reimbursed a small amount from the state for TB, and we do get one immunization grant that at this time doesn't even fully cover our LPN. So that grant we receive, and then should those positions not be filled, we could use it to cover other positions that might be in the general fund. We would have that ability to use that grant for other positions. Does that answer your question?
I do think, and I'm not positive, but I do believe that we just receive a certain amount on a quarterly basis.
I believe so.
And then it has to be, then we submit a report of what that was used for, and it has to be eligible expenses. Now, if for some reason we did not have enough eligible expenses for that, we would have to return that.
Okay, so I guess what I'd be interested to find out is if that 30% that they're funding, if it has to go to that, or, I mean, because right now, I mean, sometimes we hear about grants and the problem, and I'm a big proponent of applying for grants. I mean, everybody, I think, knows that by now. But at the same time, what I always hear is, oh, the administration of the grants, you've got to be careful because sometimes they end up costing us more. So just those 3 positions add up to $233,000 approximately. And that 30% match is approximately $70,000 of that. So I mean, I want to be mindful of the fact that in order to get $70,000, we have to spend $163,000. And I don't know, do we have to spend that, or is this a we can spend that?
So the state formula does not, it's not specific to these positions. So I want to clarify that. So I could go on the state formula if I wanted to. And so it is an allocation, it's a line item typically at the legislative level then that determines, again, it's based on your population and one other factor that determines what each county gets. So we have just chosen to apply it to these positions because otherwise there is no grant funding to cover them.
Perfect, okay. And that was exactly what I was wanting to hear, because I don't want to put any of, I know that's a large grant, right? And I don't want to put it in jeopardy by any moves that we make in your budget.
Sure, the state formula, the only piece that is, we do have to report to them what our tax allocation is. And so that does, if that were to be reduced, then our state formula could also be reduced, is my understanding.
Are there?
But, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So does that mean if your funding is increased, it will increase your?
It would not increase. It is capped. Okay. It is capped out at that. Although there have been increases, I believe, for the last 3 years at the state level.
So the maximum that they would pay is that 30%. So we can't say like, we're gonna, instead of funding these 3 positions, we're gonna fund another position at 90%?
Well, I could fund one of these positions at 100% if I wanted to, but then that leaves the other positions with no grant funding to cover them. So,
And then they would be paid for by the county.
correct.
So it's just a matter of allocating the
Yes.
funds what position she's allocating them to.
I see.
Just one other thing, because you were talking about using these reserves towards us, and like I say, there is certainly a way to do that. I just want you to be mindful, though, that then next year, to provide the same amount
Understood.
of funding, you would not have those reserves to do that with.
Understood, and that's where I made the mention of, are there grants, opportunities that we haven't exercised? Are there other funding opportunities that we haven't become aware of? And really, what it would do is it would put the pressure on the health department that they would either find the funding or lose the positions. So.
I feel like I want to add an additional comment on there. So a lot of grants, you mentioned it yourself, Commissioner Cook, the administrative costs. So sometimes these grants are $5,000 or $10,000, and looking at what we're doing to write for them. Are they one-time only funding? Are there any renewal options, things of that sort? So the larger, grants to really make up, let's just say 400,000, that's a multitude of grants that we're trying to find.
Right.
But there, and I'm going back to what I talked about before, if we look for a grant search tool, we do think that we have potentially a source to pay for that would not necessarily hit the department's budgets, but they might be able to benefit from that. One of the things that also shows is what has been awarded in the past and kind of helps you to zero in on some
But those
of them.
are all unknowns.
They are all unknowns. I just want you to know that we're trying to look for
Right,
them.
absolutely.
That's
I want to go back to that scenario number 1 that you had.
Okay.
There was like, 6 positions you had in there? Is that right? 1,
Correct.
2,
There were 6 positions, and they are all currently vacant.
And you mentioned one that you thought was more important than the others. Was that the
It's the community health planner.
community health planner?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that's been open for,
Yeah, it's
A long
listed
time.
on there for a long time, so I think there's a little history. Would you like to hear a little of the background of
Sure.
that position? So that position was initially filled, I believe, in 2019, and had a great candidate onboarded. This person was really digging into the community health assessment, community health improvement plan, our Heartland Healthy Neighborhoods, looking at data, things of that sort. And then 2020 arrived, and we all know what happened from there and through the next few years. This particular staff member, her job duties had shifted enough during the pandemic that essentially there wasn't joy in coming to work anymore, and it wasn't what she was hired to do initially, but we weren't able to do the work in the community during the pandemic, and so that shift had to happen. And so this individual was able to move closer to home and really get a job very similar to what she does, and she still does a fabulous job in a neighboring county just down the road. So at that point, we really waited to reopen it. And so we've opened this position, I believe, 2 different times, and done 2 rounds of and did 2 rounds of interviews with applicants, and just at the time hadn't landed on the right fit. This is an individual that's going to be out in the community. This is an individual that would be here presenting to you, both as the Board of County Commission and as the Board of Health. And so it has to be the right fit. And to be honest, this year we've talked about reopening it, but once we started working on budget in May, I didn't feel comfortable reopening it, not knowing where the budget was going to land. you know, that's not a good place to be in when you hire a position and then say, no, it's just for 6 months and we're going to have to let you go because we don't have the funding. And so my confidence was not 100% until I saw where the dust was really going to settle for the 24 budget before reopening this. The important part I forgot to mention, Commissioner Rippon, is this was actually, when it became about in 2019, a unique venture between the Topeka Community Foundation and the Health Department. So my predecessor at the time went before them, is my understanding, and presented this idea, and it was partially funded by them and partially funded by the Health Department.
Do you recall what the qualifications of that job were? I mean, is this somebody that's got to be, you know, it has to be in the medical field, or is this somebody that could be an athletic trainer that's doing public speaking, or, I mean, I don't know.
I don't think there's anything medical on the position description. I'm looking back towards Craig. This is actually a position on his division, so he probably knows the position description better than I do.
Morning, Commissioners. Craig Barnes, Health Department. So no medical background. It is a bachelor's required, master's preferred. We're looking with someone with experience in public engagement and really benefits on the side of analytical interpretation for health data. And so those are few and far between. And so as Director Fisher had mentioned, we have in 21 and 2022 opened up and done interviews. I think, if I can remember correctly, we have done interviews with about 10 applicants. Both not the right fit, but we did make multiple offers as well. And one of the big things for this was salary was not at a suitable range for a lot of those applicants. They could find similar positions in other communities that would pay a higher rate than what we were allowed to pay here in the Health Department in Shawnee County. And so there were a lot of variables and a lot of factors that didn't allow us to hire on somebody that we did feel was a good fit, but then also applicants that just did not fit what we were looking for here in our community.
Okay. Thank you. I think I'm gonna make a motion, we kick the can down the road, and table this one also. I don't know that I'm ready to make any significant changes right now. I think there's some more thinking that needs to happen. If you guys are comfortable with that.
It is, I mean, if neither, yes, I understand. But at the same time, Tracy, I appreciate the work that you and your department have put into this and educating us as to what the impacts of the cuts are. This is the work that we needed to see. So I appreciate greatly the work that your department, not a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, these scenarios, this was very good. This was helpful. So thank you for doing that. Well, do you guys want to tackle anything more, or do you want to?
Parks and Recreation has not been addressed.
Yeah, that and Stormont Vale.
And Stormont Vale.
And we tabled the sheriff, we tabled the the health department.
Everything else has been addressed.
No. Well, we can do Parks and Rec. I'm still good.
Good morning, good afternoon. Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department.
Most of your increase is probably salary, I'd gather.
Yeah, most of it is salary. I think in my presentation that I gave, which I talked about, yes, salaries. We want to give increases to our lifeguards and some of our intermittent staff at centers and amenities. And our insurance premiums went up. And those were the ones that I touched on specifically.
This cardiograph.
Cardiograph was in there, yeah. Our subscription for Cardiograph I think in my presentation, I said 3 years. It's actually a 5-year. But that amount, that 136,000 is our portion annually.
It's also used by the Public Works
And
and
they-
Solid Waste.
Correct,
But this is just your portion.
correct. I believe it's annually. I verified it this morning.
And, and Tim, your office has been using that cartograph system now for 5 years?
That's a good question. It was here when I got here in 2019. So I'm not sure when they purchased it, but I think at least 5 years.
And there's quite a bit that's been migrated to that for work orders and for job assignments.
Yeah, we use it for work orders. We use it, at its heart, it's an asset management system. So we keep track of everything that we have, the age, when things are serviced, when we buy them, when we replace them. But it's also used as a work order system. It's also integrates with C-Click Fix. So if somebody's in a park and they see something that's not right, they can report it on C-Click Fix. It goes directly to the person in our department who's responsible for that. I also get those reports on a weekly basis. And then we can, it creates a work order and we can track those things and make sure we're taking care of them.
And staffing, you're setting not too bad, actually, as far as
No.
positions.
No, but I mean, I could touch on some of our, if you'd like, on some of our unposted positions, because I think there's some things we could do there to reduce our budget. We had a Parks and Recreation leader position that's not posted. That one we wanted, that was at Garfield. We reduced our hours at Garfield Community Center. The position is vacant, obviously, right now. We want to move that to our aquatics division. It would work primarily with our aquatic supervisor. We only have one full-time person in that division, and then so it'd be invaluable during the summer, and then during the off-season they could help develop programs and also work in the centers, provide additional support in our centers. So I think we have plenty for that one to do. We'd like to fill that one. We have a park maintenance technician position that can actually be closed. This was a position of a current employee, and we worked with the Teamsters Union to elevate that position to a lead worker. And then his former position apparently is still open. And so I think we could close that position. So that would be one. I'll go through just the ones I think that we do have the ability to close. We have two Parks and Rec OA2 positions, and they've never been filled after we created them. We do have one of those positions. We have a person that is doing that job as an intermittent, but they're unable to meet the requirements of the OA2. Specifically, there's a typing test involved that they're not able to pass. And so while they do a great job for us in the role, and I think they do a great job here, they're not going to make it. So rather than getting rid of that person, we'd probably close that position unless we could change the requirements of the position. And then we have another OA2 that we have never opened that could be eliminated. And then last but not least, we have a park maintenance worker custodian position that we also feel like we could eliminate. So total, if we eliminated all four of those positions based on the numbers that were in the memo that was sent out, my math is a little over $169,000. Ooh, I'm glad I didn't say it because mine's a little different.
546, so yeah.
You're probably
yeah,
right.
close. I don't know, I was doing it.
Well, that's how I
was
did
doing
it.
it with one thumb. So
I was doing it when Brian Cole was up here talking.
Approve this one.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I don't know if we need to eliminate all of these, but all four of those positions. Okay.
I would say that park maintenance tech position, to be honest, we just weren't clear that, we didn't realize that position was open. Could I use another park maintenance tech position? Absolutely. You know, if it's in the cards, we would open it and fill it.
Yeah, but you got 3 others that are already open
Yeah.
in that same job, so I mean.
Yeah. Although that is one that we open and we routinely fill. I mean, we do currently have 3 open, but historically, we haven't had too much trouble filling those. We have a little bit more trouble filling the park maintenance worker because it just doesn't pay as well. But the tech positions, we typically can fill.
Was that custodian job, that part-time custodian, was that ever posted at all?
I don't believe that it was. Am I wrong?
Mike Augustine with Human Resources. We did have, at the time last year, we posted all of the 082 position part-times, as well as park maintenance worker custodian part-time. All of those positions were posted under single postings. So one posting for the part-time 082, one posting for the part-time park maintenance worker custodian. And there were other part-time positions that we posted also. So one posting to fill multiple PCNs.
Okay. And did we get any applications, or, I mean, I curious if there was any interest at all?
Yes, there were applications at the time, and in fact, I believe that they have other part-time custodian positions that are currently filled. So I believe that at one time we, if memory serves me correct, we opened 3 positions for part-time custodian, 2 of which are filled currently.
Okay. I think out of those jobs that he mentioned, I think that honestly that custodian job, I'd prefer to kind of leave that one there. I mean, it seems like having the bathrooms cleaned at the parks and stuff, trash cans emptied.
I believe this position would work primarily in our centers. I think was what the description was.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, one of the reasons I offered this position up was, 1, the pay is fairly low, and 2, we have been able to supplement with our rec staff, our rec leaders, to handle that.
I appreciate that. And I guess, Tim, when would you be looking at reclassifying that recreation leader to an aquatics job?
Yeah, it is, we would like to do that now, or get that going. It wasn't on the memo when I came up here a couple of weeks ago and talked about our districting and the changes we wanted to make there. But that was very much part of our plan. It just wasn't a new position. We're just changing it essentially to a different division. So I think we will have to tweak the job description somewhat, because the duties will change slightly. But yeah, we'd like to do that now. It's, once we get through this process.
Okay, you said these 082s, were you offering both those up or just one?
I could offer them both up, to be honest. They've never been filled since we opened, since they were created. They were advertised. Like I said, we do have an intermittent person that's filling one of those positions. And actually, they're both being filled by intermittent people. They've just one of them has changed over, we just haven't had the same person in that position the whole time. But either we would want to get rid of them, or maybe discuss changing the requirements.
If we were to eliminate the 2 082s and the maintenance custodian, but keep the park maintenance technician, what would that kind of a reduction would we have?
$149,694.
Thank you.
It's almost $150,000.
No,
No, it's like 115.
no, that's the
Which
biggest
ones? Oh, did I say the wrong ones?
It was the.
That-
Oh, and leave the park maintenance tech?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So, I mean, personally, I think that's probably the one that we,
So
The one
the
you
other
thought-
three?
that's the one seems the easiest to get rid of, just because there's 3 other
Yeah.
positions there
Okay,
that are also
so you're
posted.
saying the
I think that's where the
two
need is.
OA2
though.
and
I
the
think just
park
they need some
maintenance?
Boots on the ground.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, you're saying the two OA2s and the park maintenance?
Well, I had said the park custodian, but
Oh,
These two and that one.
Commissioner
Park ma-
Ray
yes,
has
park-
another idea here.
I guess it says park maintenance worker custodian. So, pick your word there. I picked custodian, you picked,
All
it's
right.
okay.
Wait, okay.
Those three would be 115,000.
I could leave the park custodian and switch out a park maintenance tech, I guess.
I mean,
If I could address that, I mean, I do think, I do agree with Commissioner Rippon in that the area that I feel like we have the most need is out in our parks. You know, we've got so many. And I think we've done a tremendous job over the last 3 or 4 years addressing a lot of deferred maintenance and other things. But ultimately, those parks only look as good as the staff can make them, I guess, you know. And so the more staff we have out every day, we contract a lot of it out too. But I think you really see some benefit from that. Whereas like on that custodian, I do think that we're supplementing with other staff. I feel like Jess and I had a conversation about that yesterday afternoon, that we have 2 recreation leaders or rec aides. You know, at any time in these centers, we have 2 staff. So it makes sense to me that one of them could be doing some light cleaning while the other one's manning the front desk. And I think that just makes sense.
I mean, I think if we just, I guess, one more position on here I wanted to ask about was a purchasing specialist.
Yes. So the purchasing specialist is vacant because the person in that position was elevated to another position. We have been working with HR and audit finance on this position, and essentially where we've landed is the plan right now is once this process is over and audit finance has a little time, that they're going to come review really that whole division where we handle all of our finances, you know, because that's the question, is actually how many people do we need? And unfortunately, I wish we'd have done that prior to this, and you'd have a better idea. We were looking at other jobs and trying to really reclassify that position, probably at a lower level. But there's been some discussion about, are we really being as efficient as we can? Do we need another position? And that's an area that I'll admit that's why we're gonna ask them to come in and look at it, because I can't honestly answer that question. Staff is letting me know, yes, we feel like we absolutely need it. But based on the amount of work we're doing compared to other departments, there's some question. So,
Well, I'm gonna make a motion then, that we approve the budget with the reduction of the 2 OA2s and the park maintenance worker custodian.
That would be subtracting 115,000.
Second.
Agreed? Yes. Okay.
Motion's
Agreed?
been made by Commissioner, oh, go ahead, thank you.
I'll make an amendment, that we approve everything you did, but also, take off the park maintenance technician for the 54,624, so all 4 of the positions that Tim.
Oh, okay. The 169,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like your forestry department, how many guys do you have in there right now?
1.
Yeah.
I just, when I look at this and there's 4 positions open that that are the same job title. I don't see the harm in taking one of them off. I mean, still got 3 open positions there. It'd be great if you could fill all 3 of those, but personally, I doubt it's gonna happen right away, so, I hope you do. But I think the one that's not posted, I think might as well, in my opinion, not fund it.
So, Commissioner Mays, just in a practical form, and I understand we're going through the discussion, looking at each position and each open position, and I appreciate that. But once the budget's passed, and Parks and Recreation has this within their budget, if they have a forestry person who walks out of K-State and walks in, and he has it within his budget, I would fully anticipate that Director Laurent is gonna walk in here and say, I wanna fill this position for my forestry department. So unless we're making a motions today to eliminate positions and remove them from Parks and Recreation's job titles, the positions would still be there, they would just be unfunded.
Correct.
So we're not eliminating positions, we're just eliminating funds. So if you're gonna make a motion to eliminate positions and remove them so that Tim can't fill them, that's, I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page on what we're doing
Yeah,
here.
this would be to not fund them.
I think what we're looking at right now is just not funding them.
So you're wanting to reduce the funding for the department by 115,000 or 169,000. But still, if he found a procurement person, he'd fill it. If he found I don't know, best custodial service that we've ever seen, he's gonna fill it.
Yes.
So,
Correct.
Because he has other
And so
positions.
So the initial motion was to reduce the budget by 115,000 by Commissioner Rippon, which I seconded. You've offered an amendment requesting that cut be 169.
169,000.
And so the question is whether or not Commissioner Rippon is willing to amend his motion to that amount.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to reflect the 169.
I'll take mine off then.
Okay, so,
And I'm not gonna second that, but if you wanna second it, you're
I'll
more than welcome.
second it.
okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Okay,
You have Stormont Vale Event Center that hasn't been discussed yet.
all right, let's talk about Stormont Vale Event Center.
Now, there's 2 items for it. One is just the regular subsidy. The second one is the owner building expense
Oh, gee.
category. That is really just for repairs to our building that the county as an owner would be responsible for. It still goes through the advisory board and comes to you for your approval. That they have requested, last year we funded 200,000, this year they have reduced that request to 100,000.
I'm gonna ask for a 5-minute recess. You
Okay.
can stretch, go to the restroom, whatever. So.
Take a break for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah. I was like, we've been here for 3 hours, so let's make these jokes. Some people
I did bang the gavel. All right. Kellen.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Stormont Vale Event Center, OVG 360. Happy to address any questions you might have.
Commissioner Mays, would you support increasing the operating by, I believe you mentioned at least 25,000, or at 25,000 was a number that was thrown around for subsidizing events at, moving events from Ag Hall to Exhibition Hall for nonprofits?
Yes, although I was going to ask a question about, have you identified which events would do that? And what I don't want to do is allocate a certain amount of money and then have all these new events pop up that say they want to be in Ag Hall. And so it'd be nice if...
Say that they want to be an Exhibition Hall.
Or Exhibition Hall, well, or one or the other. But what I would like to see is, you know, what events are historically using that probably are going to be the ones that have caused the plumbing problems at the time of their event.
Yeah, so we have addressed some of those areas. The community events that we host, we budget to host about 54 of those events a year. Of that 54, the vast majority of that, between 47 and 50 of those are court docket sessions that take place every Tuesday. The other less than a handful of those events are community-based events that would utilize that facility, things like Community Thanksgiving Dinner, our partnership with Fiesta and the Coronation Ball, and a couple other nonprofit events that haven't made it back yet, but have traditionally in the past utilized that space, like Operation Soup Line, and a couple other events that do have the potential to possibly come back. SLI's Festival of Trees, you know, some of those events, if they do decide to make it back onto campus, those would be those community-based events that would take place in that space.
And do you have an idea for those events what the amount of that subsidy would need to be to move those to Exhibition Hall or to Heritage Hall if they would fit there?
Yes. So our budgeted revenue on Ag Hall for 2022 in its entirety, including all events, both consumer events, community events, and other pieces of business, was about $45,000. In 2023, that budget number did jump up to about $56,000 as we were doing a few more consumer-based shows out of that space. But as it relates to the community and cultural and banquet sectors, we're talking right about $20,000 to $22,000.
Okay. So it sounds like 25,000 would be appropriate.
Covered.
So yes.
And adding that again to the operating. Betty, is that?
Does that mean you're accepting his request, add the current amount and adding the 25,000?
That would be my motion.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when you look at their request, I mean, such a large percentage of that is just insurance. I mean, there's not much we can do about that at this point, so.
Yeah, if we look at the request just as it pertains to the operating budget of our campus, there is an increase of $262,000 for this year. Of that, more than 50% of that request is specifically to our property insurance premium. I know we've talked about it a lot over the past couple of months, but you know, that went from $79,000 as a budgeted premium for 2023 up to $247,000 is what we are projecting that to be in 2024.
Kellen, you're one of the only departments that has the ability to raise more money to offset the budget, so.
Yeah, and we have projected an increase of operating revenues for this upcoming year by about $100,000. That's fairly conservative. That's based off of what we've seen over the last 6 months of 2022, as well as what we've seen so far through 2023 on the event contracting services, as well as what we've seen in partnerships revenue growth. We have had some key wins over the past couple of months in our partnership segment of business. We've managed to sell our final suite, so all of the suites at the event center are sold and contracted. We're about 90% sold of our loge box seating services. We've brought on a couple new pieces of business. A lot of our partnership business that we try and bring into the facility, we focus a lot more on local business versus national business, and part of those partnerships are things like looking at partners that offset our cost liability on certain indirect expenditures. So we just finalized a partnership agreement with a temp staffing agency where we do get rebates back from our annual spend in that temp staffing agency, and correlating with giving them some advertising and promotional and brand awareness in our facilities. We do the same thing with groups like Schendel, which we've had a great partnership with for the last 5 years to help offset those liabilities for landscape and lawn maintenance services, as well as snow removal services at the facility. And we really try and focus on the areas of business where we're already doing business with local companies and offsetting those expense liabilities.
Thanks.
So again, the motion made was to accept the budget as presented with an addition of $25,000.
Correct.
To the operating, right?
To
Was
the
that-
operating.
okay, to the operating.
And we'd just be voting on that.
That's the motion. It hasn't had a second yet.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Okay.
Then we have the owner building expense that I was mentioning earlier. Last year, we funded that at $200,000, and they are requesting $100,000 this year.
This is essentially our capital funds. Currently, that sits at about $149,000. We do have some requests that are going to be coming your way over the next few weeks. So that fund will be down closer to about the $100,000 mark as we get towards the end of August. We don't feel the need to, we don't see or foresee any large expenditures coming out of that capital budget for the 2024 year. However, there are always items that pop up that need capital addressed, so keeping that fund around that $200,000 mark or $150,000 comfortable mark for us is important for our operation moving forward.
Yeah, I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I think we've deferred the rest of
Okay,
these, haven't
so
we?
There's
I
only
say
two.
we have-
Sheriff and the Health Department are the only two that have not been preliminarily
That's
approved.
correct. Yes. And right now, you show an estimated mill levy of a decrease of .228.
Okay. All right. Ready to move on to another item?
Unless Commissioner Mays, do you want to go back to the sheriff or the health department?
No, not today.
Okay.
Not today. Okay.
Because
Next.
I'm really hungry, because that's why it's not good. He's hearing my tummy growl over here.
Well, next item.
Item 5, public comment.
I don't have anyone signed up, so is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak? Everybody's leaving. All right, next item, administration.
Item 6, administrative communications.
Anyone needing to say anything? Commissioner Mays, do you have anything to add?
Not that I can think of.
Commissioner Cook?
Boy, I love budgets.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that August 14th, we are going to be.
Hold on, Kurt's coming up.
Oh, he
Kurt
is.
doesn't. Go ahead and finish your August.
That's great.
13th.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Oh. August 14th, we'll be canvassing votes. That's a Monday, so we will not have a work session here. We will be at the election office. And that'll be at 9 o'clock, and it's open to the public.
Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public
There you go.
Works. I just want to say, effective yesterday around noon, Nottingham Road is opened.
Good.
Good.
So,
Good.
thank you.
Anyone else? Everybody's out of venom. All right. What's next?
Number 7,
We do. Number 7.
I said it really quietly, so
5
maybe you wouldn't hear
minutes.
it. Executive session.
Okay. We do have a need to go into executive session. I'll make a move, go into executive session for a period not to exceed 15 minutes for the following reason. One, consultation with an attorney for the public body or agency, which would be deemed privileged in an attorney-client relationship, specifically to discuss possible litigations. We've put aside 15 minutes for that. No action is expected following this executive session. Motion made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. We are back in session. No actions taken at this time. We're adjourned.
Here you go.
You want me to bang
One
it?
time,
But
we
Cindy,
were
the
getting
tape-
ready to leave, and you forgot to say, we're adjourned.